Good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Ethan Collier, and I chair the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission. I want to go over a couple things before we get started. About a week ago, no, I don't think we can. So a couple things before we get started. Planning Commission received this packet in the mail a little over a week ago, and they've had an opportunity to review it in advance of today's meeting. And so at times throughout the meeting, we do move quickly through the agenda. So make sure you've got a copy of the agenda there in front of you and follow along closely so that you know where we're at and what we're doing. In each case, I will read off the case number and the address, and I will ask if there's any opposition here. If you're here and you've got questions or concerns, or you're in opposition to the case, please raise your hand when I ask if you're here in opposition. The reason why that's important is because if I don't know you're here, then we wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity to hear from you. Because in each case, what we'll do is I'll ask if there's any opposition, you'll raise your hand, and I'll ask if the applicant's here. Most of the time they are. If we have opposition to a case, most often we'll hear the staff report, which is what we have here in front of us. Brian will share the staff report for us. And then there might be some back and forth between the planning commissioners and staff with some questions or some conversation to get some clarity. Then we'll hear from the applicant. The applicant will be the first to speak, and the applicant will have 7 minutes to present the reason for the request. Be respectful as the applicant's talking. Nobody else should be talking. Only the person at the podium is allowed to talk. After we get done with the applicant, they've said what they need to say. There might be some back and forth, some questions. They'll take a seat. Those that are here in opposition that wish to speak at that time, after the applicant's finished, make sure you get out of your chair and come up to the right side of the room and line up down the wall that these gentlemen are standing at, and line up behind the podium here. And the opposition will have a total of 9 minutes. We don't deviate from that. So if there's 27 people lined up on this side of the room, I will do some very quick math and determine that each person gets 22.5 seconds. I'm sorry, that's just the rules. There's a total of 9 minutes for opposition. After opposition gets done, everybody needs to take a seat. The applicant will have 2 minutes to get up and respond to what's been said. One thing that can be helpful for opposition to hear from me, and hopefully you hear this, is that we're here to listen. We need to get a better understanding of what's happening. Opposition's here. They've taken time out of their day to come and speak. Please make sure that when it's your opportunity to speak, you say something that hasn't been said before. What is not necessarily helpful to us, and we've seen this happen so many times, is where somebody gets up here and they say all sorts of things that we needed to hear, and the next person gets up and says the exact same thing. And then the third person gets up and says the exact same thing. That isn't necessarily helpful for us. We are paying attention. We are listening. And so if you had planned some comments and then it turns out somebody else has said those things, you can maybe skip over that portion and give some opportunities for the people that are behind you in line to speak. When you come up to the microphone, there's a red light. That's how you know it's on. And also normally we have a clock, but it was upside down and people weren't able to read it. So we do have a clock, and I'll make sure to keep everybody posted on the time. And then when you come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, whether you're an applicant or you're here in opposition. So with that, and then one other thing is that in the case of the vast majority of what we do today will be a recommendation to either the county commission or the city council. And so make sure to follow along for those future dates on when those cases will be heard at the county commission or city council. Brian, did I miss anything?
No, you didn't, but there has been one case on the agenda that has been withdrawn that was done Monday of last week. It's on the agenda, but will not be heard today. That's case item number 6, which is case 2023-197, Stone Creek Consulting for 2661 Harrison Pike in the city of Chattanooga. That has officially been withdrawn.
And just to reiterate, what that means is if you're here in regards to that case and you're in opposition, We're not going to hear that case today. So when we get to item 6 on the agenda, we're going to skip over it. And we're going to go from 5 to 7. You're welcome to stay and hang out with us, but maybe not. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. First item on the agenda is SD 2023-0057. And this is lots 1 through 40 located at 7038 Ottawa Georgetown Road. Staff has recommended to defer this preliminary plat for 30 days. Mr. Schultz.
Sure. This case was deferred last month. There was a zoning condition tied to this property where they have to connect from Ottawa Georgetown Road to Sila Road, just to the right of this picture. This plat doesn't meet that requirement. They're planning on submitting a revised plat this month for January that does show that connection. I think we've got a pre-submittal meeting with them next week. So this case needs deferred again.
So on a preliminary plat, we can indefinitely defer it?
You have to take action next month.
We have to take action
Yes.
next month. Okay. Is the applicant present? Okay. We do have a motion to defer for 30 days and it has been properly seconded. Can you state your name and address for the record, and can we turn that mic on?
Is it there? You
There
there?
you go.
Test. My name is Dawson Halliday. My address is 8007 Hampton Cove Drive, Ottawa, Tennessee. And I was going to ask, because it was a more significant change to our plan, it's going to be tough for us to finish and communicate with you guys by the 15th of this month. And so we're going to end up asking, we'll be able to for sure have something by the February meeting, is what I'd like to do. It's too quick turnaround considering we needed to add an additional road to that. So that's going to be our ask if we can, just to give us time to discuss more and do the right thing for the county.
So I think the applicant needs to withdraw this case. Other than just submit new.
Okay. So that's not, so you can't defer one more time there on top of that?
We can only defer for 30 days.
Okay.
We can't defer for anything in excess of 30 days.
Anything in excess of 30 days. Okay.
Yeah, I suggest just withdraw it, applicant withdraw and start again.
Okay. Because we're probably not going to be able to talk in that time period either between now. I mean, I don't know. Would you guys be able to discuss what we send in by the 15th? Probably
That's
not.
Trina. She's not here today. I just
Okay.
withdraw it and start.
Okay. All right. Then we'll withdraw it then at this point.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to. We have a motion to withdraw and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next case on the agenda is SD 2023-0064. And this is located at 6320 Rodney Lane. And it has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? You're here in opposition? Yes. And is there an applicant present? All right. Do you wish to speak on the case? Okay. Mr. Schultz.
Yes, this is a variance request for Morning Glory subdivision, 6320 Rodney Lane. Subdivision regulations require that any lot that's actually screen went out. Any lot that's less than doesn't have frontage on a public road must be 5 acres or larger. The applicant's requesting to divide this lot into 2 lots, roughly 2.5 acres each on a private road. Therefore, that's the reason the applicant needs the variance request, is to have 2 lots less than 5 acres on a private road. Staff looked at it and felt there were similar sized lots to the east. Even though that's on a public road, it would not set the precedent. So staff recommended to approve the variance request.
Thank you. Sir, if you wish to speak, come on up to the mic.
I'm Terry Marler, representing the homeowner Debbie Lane at 8821 Forest Pond. The property's right behind her. And what I'm in opposition about is that we're over, the lots are over a half a mile away from the nearest fire hydrants. And another thing too, there's a frog level branch that runs through the property. And I've got pictures from just this weekend from the rain where it's running out of its banks because of the drainage issues that the county won't do anything about between the 8821 and 8823. And if they're going to add to these houses, they're going to add 2 more houses back there, which I feel like I'm wasting my time because they've already started excavation and clearing on 6320 Rodney Lane. They've already started doing clearing and excavation work, but yet they have no building permit and no ground disturbance permit, no silt fence up. So I'm in opposition of, I'll be glad to have one house, but not two back there if they're going to already stop not doing it by the way they're supposed to.
Thank you. It's will of the commission. We have a motion to approve. And it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is SD 2023-0065. It's located at 10762 Lost Lake Circle and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present?
Mr. Chairman, we did receive opposition to this variance request. The applicant is out of town, can't be here today. He's officially asked for deferral. Prior to us doing the after the staff recommendation was created, we started getting some information about a lawsuit potentially in this area and violating a deed restrictions. We're normally not involved in those. There's a whole set of legal issues that's potentially going on with this variance request. I'm not sure if that's a deferral for 60 days for the applicant to be here to talk about that, or do you want to just deny the variance request? This is basically a variance to create two lots less than 5 acres on a private road. There's deed restrictions that basically says you cannot subdivide any further. In the meantime, the property owner developer at the time deeded all the lots to the homeowner association. They now have control of all the lots in this subdivision. As part of the requirements, the deed restrictions, the developer was supposed to provide a community lot for access to the lake. But that didn't happen. The applicant or property owner has gone back in and purchased another lot, which is lot 22 on the screen. And you see here's lot 22, and he's wishing to subdivide that in two lots instead of giving the one lot, which is lot 22, to the homeowner association. And I believe all the opposition have their names correct on the screen. I think that's mostly where all the opposition is came from. We did receive a letter from an attorney representing, I guess, the neighborhood association. Because of the holidays, the courts have not taken this up yet, whether he can truly subdivide this or not.
Okay, thank you.
There's a lot going on with this case.
Sure. All right. We'll hear from the opposition if you'd like to speak. Come on up to the mic.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Disney, 10959 Lost Lake Circle, Udawal, Tennessee. I am the president of the Homeowners Association, so I'll be speaking for collectively of the homeowners. I currently have a petition which I've sent to Brian that outlines most of the homeowners' objections to that. I have this in hard copy if you'd like to see that as well. I do have several points that I ask for your consideration. The first, which Mr. Bryan spoke to, the variance conflicts with their current CNRs, which basically the former developer wrote the CERs, and he's choosing not to follow them. Number 3, under buildings and restrictions, it shall be permissible for the developer to rearrange boundary tracts if so desired and combine tracts or parts of tracts into one building plot, but not to the extent of increasing the number of tracts once the final subdivision has been recorded. So the request increases the number of tracts by 1, calling it 22A, still increases that number, right? If the variance was approved, a poor precedent would be in place that could potentially open the door for others in the neighborhood to split their tracts and build additional homes. This would be in direct conflict with the original design plan and promotional marketing used as a community with 5-acre lot with a gated community. And I have several examples of the current marketing promotion that's being online from the current builder that the developer employs. If you'd like to see that, I have that as well. Point 3, item 6, lake and gated access. Each tract in the subdivision for the lake shall have access to the lake for recreational activities. Tract blank on the plat of Lost Lake subdivision aforesaid is designated as a community tract for use and access of the lake by owners of tracts which do not front the lake. LLHA will construct and maintain a community dock facilities on the community tract, make special assessments against the owners, improvement in these community structures on this tract as necessary. My challenge, the nomenclature tract is always referenced as a whole tract, not a partial tract, as a current tract owner is requesting in his variance. Another point, it is noted in extremely small fine print for the variance that the tract owner has plans to build a home on the remaining property, the non-lake side. The HOA challenges the overall purpose in the variance request of constructing a dock, but to ultimately build a home on the remaining 3.2 acres. If the purpose is to construct a dock, as he stated in his variance, there is no need for a variance, but maintain the entire tract as called out in the CNR and build the dock and turn it over to the HOA as stated in the CNRs. Next point. The previous developer, who is the current tract owner of this lot, denied home construction on the non-lake side of the road to a previous tract owner, yet now he's trying to do it. Therefore, precedent has already been established. Additionally, no home in the subdivision touched by the lake is located on the non-lake side, which is where he's trying to build. Next point, the requester is no longer the developer. I don't know if everyone understands that. He is only a tract owner as the HOA was turned over from the developer to the homeowners as of May of this year. Last point, tract owner, previous developer, has litigation against him currently for failing to provide the non-lake owners access to the lake due to his previous lot that he declared a community lot for lake access was used to build a home and sold it. This action left no tract access for non-lake owners. His previous actions indicate that he will not construct a dock, but build another home for sale. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Chris Earlywine. I live at 11013 Lost Lake Circle. I'll be brief here. As mentioned, legal action. You've been made aware that from a letter from our law firm of Cavett Abbott Weiss, there's a pending litigation against the developer specifically related to this matter. At this time, an injunction has been filed against this developer, lot owner, who now owns tract in question to prohibit him from conveying, encumbering, or splitting lot tract 22. There's now a hearing scheduled for December 19th, and we firmly believe our injunction will be granted. With that in consideration, we strongly encourage you to not approve this request.
Thank you.
Robin Packard, 509 Skiatook Court, Loudon, Tennessee. I am the previous owner of Tract 22, and currently I am seeking legal representation because in the sale agreement of Tract 22, the lakeside of that was granted a permanent recreational easement to the non-lake owners before the sale. It's included in the warranty deed. And I also retain a right to repurchase that lot if he is to sell it or do anything with it. He is currently in violation of the conditions of that sale contract, and I'm happy to provide copies of those today to you.
Thank you. I just want to speak to most of what we've heard today is, and I appreciate you being here and appreciate everybody that spoke, but unfortunately for you, those are private matters. Obviously, you know that because you're suing the individual, the applicant, and those are tried in the court of law, not here at Planning Commission. So what your HOA covenants and restrictions say, for better or worse, they're irrelevant to the Planning Commission. Whether or not there's any private litigation on a specific piece of property is irrelevant to the Planning Commission. So those private matters are not what we're here to govern. It's just simply based on what is permissible inside of county law and subdivision in the county. So with that, I'd entertain a motion in regards to the case.
Mr. Chair, I move to deny.
We have a motion to deny, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank y'all.
And just so the opposition's walking out, it doesn't mean he can't apply again for the variance.
Next case on the agenda is SD 2023-0066, and this is Dallas Hollow Townhomes. It's lots 1 through 21, located at 9109 Dallas Hollow Road, and staff is recommended to approve the application. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is SD 2023-0067, and this is located at Sweetbriar Phase 2, Section A, lots 145 and 190 through 240, located at 6424 Snow Hill Road. Staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Can somebody shut the doors in the back? Can you shut the doors? Thank you. Next case on the agenda is item 6. It's case SD 2023-0068. It's located in Milltown, 2020 subdivision. It's lots 2.1 and 2.33, located at 2310 East 18th Street. Staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve. It has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is SD 2023-0069. It's located in Black Creek, Phase 15. Slots 1501 through 15198. And it's located at 3301 River Gorge Drive. Staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is SD 2023-0070. It's located at 8919 Kevin Lane. Staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 9 on our agenda, case SD 2023-0071, is preliminary and final plat for Southern Legacy, located at 2512, 2510, 2514 Will Kelly Road. And staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve. And it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. First item under old business is case 2023-0182. It's located at 5120, 5116, 5134 Highway 58, and 5 unaddressed properties in the 5100 block of Highway 58. It's an application to rezone from C5 Neighborhood Commercial Zone to C2 Convenience Commercial Zone with conditions. Staff is recommending to deny the applicant's request and approve others with conditions. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? And you're here in opposition? Okay. All right, Mr. Schultz.
Sure, let me start. I'll get back to the very beginning here. This is a request for case 2023-182. Request was rezone this entire triangular piece of property from C5 neighborhood commercial zone to C2 convenience commercial zone with conditions. It's about 8.9 acres in size. The proposed use has changed since the original application was a driving range. There's a power line easement to the front of this property, which makes the driving range not permissible. Therefore, the applicant changed the request to boat dealership. Looking at the zoning map, to the south is R1. That's Mimosa Circle subdivision. To the east, this property is R1, and then further east is Enterprise South, which is M1. To the northeast and north along Highway 58, you have a mixture of zones from C5, C2, R4, and R2. So there's a mixture of commercial zones along the Highway 58 corridor. There were three conditions proposed by the applicant. Number one, dealing with a type A landscape buffer. Number two, there's no access shall be allowed to Mimosa Circle. And then finally, condition number three is prohibiting certain uses like playing of music or making of announcements through mechanical or electronic devices. But again, residential lot line is prohibited. Adult-oriented establishments are prohibited. Liquor stores are prohibited. Theater, skating rinks, dance halls, billiard rooms, or other such businesses devoted primarily to entertainment is prohibited. And then alternative financial services are prohibited. And then finally, on-premise signs are prohibited. Those are conditions requested by the applicant. There's been a lot of zoning history on this property. Originally in 1999, there was a request to rezone this property to C5 with conditions, which was approved by City Council. And then a portion of the site was rezoned to C5 in 2016. The original request was manufacturing, but that was denied at City Council and approved for C5. And those previous conditions from 1999 went away based on that rezoning. In 2021, there was a request to rezone this site from C5 to C2. Staff recommended to rezone only those parcels fronting Highway 58 and deny the back portion, keep it C5. That was ultimately denied by City Council. Here's the site plan that was submitted with a request, just showing what, I think this is the original request from 2021, showing that what at that time in 2021 was going to be indoor mini storage. Here's a view of the sites currently vacant. To the east is utility and vacant land. Along Highway 58 is a church and commercial uses. To the south is commercial and single unit residential. Here's a view of the site from Highway 58. Another view of the site. Mimosa Circle and residential are just to the right of this picture beyond that tree line. This is north of the site across Highway 58, which is a church. This is looking towards Chattanooga, downtown. On the left-hand side of the picture is the site. This is Highway 58. Site's on the right-hand side. This is Highway 58. This property is in the Highway 58 community plan, which was adopted in 2005. So the plan's quite old, but we still use it for land use recommendations. The plan recommendation is neighborhood commercial, which is C5 type uses and C5 type zones. Primary uses include single family dwellings, townhomes, patio homes, and 2 to 4 unit dwellings and commercial uses. Here's a closer view of what that neighborhood commercial recommendation is, highlighted in the red circle. During the original recommendation for November, staff recommended to deny the request. The existing C5 neighborhood commercial zone meets the plan goals outlined in the Highway 58 community plan. So staff recommended to deny. The applicant came to November Plan Commission, again, changed the use request from a driving range to a boat dealership, had conditions, and Plan Commission directed us to come back and look at those conditions. So staff again looked at it. The applicant provided a revised site plan with conditions at the November PC. Staff felt the request is partially compatible with the Highway 58 community plan surrounding land uses and development reform. As previously recommended in 2021, staff recommends approving the change to C2 along Highway 58 and keep the C5 zone, the rear property adjacent to the residential dwellings along Mimosa Circle to prevent higher intense commercial uses and to limit potential nuisance impacts on Mimosa Circle. Here's what that looks like. Staff recommends to just rezone the front portions fronting Highway 58 and leave the back C5 with 3 conditions, and those conditions are all the same conditions that the applicant proposed.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian, the limit in C5 for a structure is 5,000 square feet.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, we'll hear from the applicant. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman. Brian, with the conditions that are on the site now, without a rezone, can this property be accessed for a commercial use by Mimosa Circle?
Correct. There are no conditions on the property now.
Okay. So if I wanted to buy this and put something on it that meets the current zoning, I could use Mimosa Circle to access the property.
That's my understanding. That's my understanding. And that's why we're having the condition here. The C5 in the back, we're rezoning that to the C5 with conditions, putting that condition, no access.
Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Alan Jones with Stone Creek Consulting, 1112 Wilmouth Road in Dunlap, Tennessee. I was able to meet with the community a couple Saturdays ago to discuss this rezone request. Unfortunately, we weren't able to come to any, agreement on any conditions. My understanding is that they are hesitant with any kind of C2 rezone because any condition can be lifted in the future. And so even my understanding is they're comfortable with the C5 as it is today, which means, access to Mimosa Circle and basically no conditions with the current C5. To kind of touch on some of the things Brian mentioned earlier. So in 1999, this property was rezoned to C5. It had 5 conditions on it. There were really only 2 conditions of importance. Some of the conditions were things like existing easements retained and erosion control plans are required. That's just part of our standard land development permit process now. But the 2 conditions that were put on the property back in 1999 was to provide a 50-foot landscape buffer along Mimosa Circle subdivision with 60 pin oak trees to be planted every 15 feet apart. And then also right-of-way access from the track to Mimosa subdivision is to be abandoned. And then 2016, for whatever reason during the rezoning process, this property was rezoned back to C5, but all those conditions were lifted. So what I'm offering to the community is that we put these conditions back in place, but with the C2 zone. Right now, the property owner has the property under contract for one of the nation's largest boat dealerships. They are in the audience today if you want to hear from them. They've kind of outlined they need more capacity. Average sales tax on these boats are in that $20,000 to $25,000 per boat, and they average probably 30 sales per month right now. But as far as conditions go, I agree with the conditions that staff put in place. Except that we'd actually like to increase the buffer from 30 feet to 50 feet with that type A landscape buffer. And what that'll do is actually increase the number of trees in this buffer to 107 trees. If you do the math from the frontage, that's an increase from the 60 that were originally approved back in 1999. If you look at a C5, I did some studying, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but I could not find any other C5 commercial property along a divided highway in Chattanooga. For C5, when I think C5 commercial resident or commercial neighborhood commercial, that's a use that's integrated with communities. This site is standalone. They do not want access to Mimosa Circle into this property. The main property frontage on this is Highway 58, 30,000 cars per day, divided highway. This site in particular is attractive to the boat dealership because they're within 5 really good marinas and just really good access for this site. So I think putting those conditions in place will continue to protect the neighbors with the 50-foot access or 50-foot landscape buffer, and then also not providing any access to Mimosa Circle, and then also all those use conditions that Brian read off earlier, keeping those in place. But I'll yield my time to the neighbors.
Are there any questions for the applicant? I do have one. You're still wanting, so all of the conditions that have been outlined by staff, you're fine with?
Except for the C5 portion.
Except for the C5 portion.
And the reason
and the increase in the buffer.
Correct. And the reason for that is there's a 75-foot power line easement that runs through this property, which runs right through the C2 portion of the property. So the only square footage that we could actually use for the boat dealership would be between the front right-of-way setback and the power line easement, which only gives you about a 75-foot deep building, which is not conducive for the building that's needed for a boat dealership. So the only place on this property where we can put that boat dealership is going to be behind the power line transmission easement, which is going to be in that C5 zone. You can see on this plan, those little buildings up front, that's even, we could do that in C5 today. So there's no point in rezoning that to C5 because the size of the building is limited by the power line easement. But with the larger building, we need that space behind the power line easement. And Brian, do you have the plan that I showed you for the boat dealership specifically? Yeah, that one right there.
That one there.
So this is right now the conceptual site plan. Coming off the current there's a divided median split right now on Highway 58. Come into the site, have a nice turnaround and approach to the boat dealership with that building right there, but then increasing that buffer to 50 feet instead of the 30 as recommended by staff.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr.
I do have
Staff
one other question.
needs to clarify, because of our recommendation, we do not have that landscape buffer as a recommended condition. So if that's something Planning Commission wants to add, we'll have to add that as a
Okay.
condition.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Brian, this question's for you, not from Alan. So go back to the site plan. No, not the revised. Okay, there. The building that is on closest to the neighborhood, that's a limitation of 5,000 square feet, correct? In C5.
Yeah, in C5, correct. It would be,
Okay.
you could have multiple 5,000 square foot buildings on that lot.
So you could have multiple 5,000 square foot. Now, my question to you is though, what is our limitation on height?
35 feet, 2.5 stories, 35 feet. Now you can go taller for every 1 foot you step back.
And step back.
Yes.
So it's limited to 35 feet. So there
Correct.
could be, right now, if someone were to purchase this, I want to make sure I understand this, a 2-story building overlooking into backyards. Or does the topography not?
I think
limit it?
Alan could probably speak more to the topography. I think the topography of Mimosa is higher than this side, or it could be level. I'm not sure Alan can speak to that.
It's a little higher. The property does drop off, but the property really doesn't start dropping off until you get to about where that proposed road connection would be.
Abutting the residential backyards, if you will,
Mhm.
where does it start?
It's the topo as far as
Yes.
it's probably plus or minus 5 or 10 feet.
Okay, so 2.5 stories would be a substantial
Yes.
structure to look at from your backyard.
Yes, it would.
All right, thank you.
Any-
One quick question for Alan. I'm
Yes, sir.
sorry. The revised site plan that we're looking at here, what is the distance from the backyard property line without any buffers now to the corner of that building? It's roughly
It's roughly 120 feet.
120 feet down a slope.
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure I understand what I'm looking at. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you,
sir.
Chairman.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
We'll hear from those that are here that are in opposition. If you wish to speak, come on up to the mic.
Good evening. My name is Alonzo Noble. I live at 5148 Mimosa Circle. And as Alan stated, we did get together a couple of Saturdays ago to meet and see what our consensus could be. But we have come up with the same answer that we had before, that we are object to this rezoning. Last time I was here, before I left, I asked the question, could conditions be changed? And I don't remember who it was that answered that. They said that the conditions couldn't be changed. They're set in stone. But I found out that conditions after 9 months, the applicant come back and make a request. So conditions can be changed if the rezoning is done. But that wasn't the answer I got last time we was here. We left thinking that whoever stated that once conditions and the zoning were set, they couldn't be changed. And so I just want to correct that. But conditions can be changed. So, but as we met, when we first started dealing with this, okay, a couple of months ago was going to be a golf driving range. So we got here last time, it had changed to the boat business. And so before that, it was the storage buildings. So we're finding out that things are changing depending on what the owners want up there. And we in Mimosa Circle do not want like the business, those types of business coming in. Somebody mentioned, I think you, Commissioner Ledford, mentioned that you was asking about the height of the buildings. And that would be a bad instruction for our community to look out to have buildings 2 foot high. None of us want that. And our community has been a long-standing community, and we pride in our community. And we would like to see, I know changes will come at some time, but at this point in time, we ask the commission to deny what we've heard today.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jimmy Watley, 5131 Mimosa Circle. I'm a veteran, and I'm just opposed to this, the buildings in the back. Most of us veterans that live in this community, we try to get away from all the noise and the confusion because of things that happen to us in our service to this country. And I'm just opposed to looking at this building here, the traffic this is gonna create. I don't care if it's a boat dock or a golf course. It's just going to be too much traffic, too much noise, and I'm just opposed to it. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for your service. Anybody else wish to speak? All right, Mr. Jones.
John Konvalenka, on behalf of the owner. My address is 633 Chestnut Street, Chattanooga, Tennessee, 37450. The owner has tried to accommodate the neighbors by changing his project from time to time in order to accommodate them. He has under now contract that's valid and enforceable to build this facility to assist the boat owners in selling their boats. There's no attempt to change anything at this point, and we would submit that's probably one of the better uses for this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? All right, having heard from the applicant and opposition, what's the will of the Planning Commission? Sir, I want to recognize that I see your hand, but the time was limited to that period of time for opposition to speak. So thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Councilman Ledford.
Mr. Nobles, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Can you come back up to the mic?
You don't care. So Brian, I need you to go back to that site plan. So
Well, can I ask my question after this then, since I'm here? It's about the easement that I want to clear up.
well, that might be a question that Mr. Jones may be able to answer, or the staff might be able to have an answer. I may not know the answer to an easement question. But my question is, and I've been following this case for a long time, it is normal for a property owner to hear opposition. It is normal for them to find a better fit based on those conversations. I will say this. So in my neighborhood, entrance to my neighborhood, I'm in a similar situation. We've had 5 attempts to rezone a property, and the neighbors were very active, and I appreciate that. And at the end, we came up with a project that finally fits. And that's the process, and that's a good process. What I fear, and this is my question to you, and this is my fear, and I've seen this many times. I've been doing this for a little while. When I look at the site plans or what's allowed, are we overlooking the possibility of what is for the fear of the possibility that won't be? And I just simply want to ask that question, because a 2.5-story building looking into your backyard is just a horrible situation for me to fathom, but it is allowed. Am I correct, Brian?
Presently, as it's on today.
It is allowed today. And if that were to happen, I think there would be some very, very upset folks in Mimosa Circle that might actually come back here and say, how is this allowed? Well, it is allowed. And I know that's not that's a reasonable request for a property along a major highway to utilize that. So I encourage the meeting, and I hope that that has happened because it did not happen last time. I really am excited that you all got together. I hope that you maybe even continue the conversation no matter what happens, because this is just a recommendation today. This will go on to city council. But I hope that further conversation happens and a collaboration in understanding, because I really do. I know you're adhering to the C5, but I've seen it, and I'm seeing a pattern of development and developers going ahead with what they have. And I fear for the folks in Mimosa Circle, especially having access through your neighborhood, which I know you don't want. And I know that it's a bit of a gamble and a bit of a roll in the dice. But I just wanted to stress that, and I wanted to let you know I hear you and I feel you. But please understand the reality of what is there. And when it comes to conditions, when the project is being built and the LDO was pulled, those conditions are solid. But yes, at some point, anybody who owns property can go back and ask at any time for a lifting of conditions, is what we normally call it, to alter a plan. The promise is to get that in writing, number one, but then when it go through the LDO process and the land use permit is pulled, that is adhered to. And that's something that your city council representative can walk through and stand on and make sure that those rules or those conditions are followed. And I just want to throw that out there. And I thank you for coming and caring so much about your residents and your neighbors in Mimosa Circle. That's all I had for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
May I ask this question, please?
What's your question?
Yeah, what is
It's dealing with the easement. I have here that Brian, Mike can look at this and answer this question, that is already set where no easements can come through our community.
Well, I don't think that's an easement. I think that's right away.
The right of way
Yeah,
can be changed.
the condition that staff is recommending, or the applicant recommended as well as staff agreeing to, is no access from this site shall be allowed to Mimosa Circle. Right now, that can't happen. If it goes through a city council, that condition, this property owner or any future property on this property could not access Mimosa unless that condition is lifted.
Can you explain to me what section 38-510 means then?
Section 3510 is accessing commercial property through residential zone property. So there is a section of zoning code. That's talking about property, not right of way, because this is actually Mimosa Circle's a future right of way. They could, in theory, connect to this commercial development. But if this condition is placed on it, they couldn't access it unless that condition is removed.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. What's the will of the commission? Councilman Ledford. Mr. Anderson.
Grocery stores, barber shops, beauty shops, cleaning and laundry establishments, including coin operated, shoe repair shops, repair establishments for household articles and appliances, offices, studios, medical and dental clinics, banking facilities. These are all things that can be built there now with a building permit, no rezone, no checking with us, no checking with city council. Something's going to be built on this property at some point. And if one of those things is built, you won't be able to control access on Mimosa Circle. They have the right now as property owners. That said, there is overwhelming opposition to this, and I don't believe it's going to get past city council, so I will move to deny this.
We have a motion to deny, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Can we do a roll call? We'll start on the end here. Mr. Cotter. Nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Yeah, so just so everybody understands, the application to rezone the property was denied. It was stated even in the motion that there are a number of things that this property could be developed for that the neighborhood would also not be okay with, but this will be heard at city council in January. All right, first item under new business. I think we've got a number of people here for one particular case. And just out of respect for the fact that you look like very productive citizens, and this is not the most productive use of your time, I'd like to try to get you out of here as quickly as possible. And I think you're probably here for, what case is it?
It is
5. Case 5 on our agenda,
no, let's see.
which
5, yes.
196.
Green
Is that
Pond
right?
Road.
If you're here for case 2023-0196, can you please raise your hand? Okay. See, we want you to go back to work. All right, so we're going to hear that case next. Is the applicant present? All right. Mr. Schultz,
Yeah, me get to
we've
that
got
case.
some opposition. Did you see that?
We do.
Okay.
And we got tons of email opposition too.
We got some email opposition?
Yes.
Okay.
And I also have, it may or may not work. Somebody in the audience gave a thumb drive of some flooding issues that will count towards our 9 minutes. I don't know if it'll work or not, but I think we all get. So if you want to hear that as well, when opposition comes up, I have that.
It's a video of flooding?
I think so. I'm not sure I'm able to play it. We'll see if you want to hear it. But this is case 2023-196. This request is rezone roughly 227 acres from A1 agriculture district to R1 single family residential for single unit residential development. Number of units proposed is roughly 780 units. That's a density of 3.3 dwelling units per acre. On the screen is the zoning map. You see it's pretty much A1 to the north. If you go further north across Green Pond Road, you do see some R1. There's a little R5 zoning to the north as well. But everything generally to the north of this property is A1. To the west is R5 and R2A and A1. To the south is A1. And to the east of the property abutting Hickson Pike is R2A and A1. And then I guess to the southeast along Hickson Pike, there is an R1 development to the southeast. There's no recent zoning history for this piece of property. But again, to the north in 2002, which is 2037 Green Pond, that property was rezoned from A1 to R1. And as I mentioned earlier, to the southeast in 2019, which is 10,408 Hickson Pike, that was rezoned to R1. So there is precedent in the area for R1 zoning. This is a vacant piece of property. To the north is agriculture uses. To the south is vacant. Southeast is single unit residential. To the north, immediately abutting this property along Green Pond Road is single unit residential. And to the west is single unit residential. This property is about 2,800 feet to the north of Sequoia Access Road. You can see on the screen Sequoia Access to the south at Hickson Pike. This is a view of the site from Hickson Pike. This is a site from Green Pond Road. This is north of the site. This is Green Pond Road. This is the intersection there is Hickson Pike and Green Pond Road. This is north of the site along Green Pond Road. This is the site plan. A site plan is not required for R1 rezoning requests. They did submit one. That's how we got the number of units. But it is not required for rezonings from A1 to R1. This is a site plan with 2 entrances, one off Green Pond Road and one off Hickson Pike. Here's just a map of showing the area being rezoned. The current A1 agriculture district would permit a gross lot yield of roughly 455 residential units based on the current zoning. Again, that's gross. It's not taking any acreage for roads or detention ponds. But if you look at a gross acreage of the A1, which is 2 dwelling units per acre, you can get roughly 455 dwelling units, probably less time you built the roads and infrastructure. A1 PUD is a tool that would allow the applicant to have flexibility of lot sizes, lot widths, and setbacks without the need to rezone to R1. Again, the A1 PUD would have a density of 2 dwelling units per acre. Keep in mind, about 3 years ago, the county changed the R1 residential district, which would permit a maximum density of 7.2 dwelling units per acre. That's gross. The applicant's showing 3.3 dwelling units per acre for a lot yield of 780 units. In theory, based on 7.2, they could get more, but again, because of roads and infrastructure, that's less. So even though they're doing 780 units, the density is still fairly low at 3.3. There is no land use plan to provide guidance on increasing residential density in this area. We're currently through RPA going through a land use planning process to determine where higher density should be in the county and where it should not be. So we're conducting that. So right now we don't really have a plan to offer that guidance. We do follow the comp plan, but it's just a general big picture overview. So based on the current zoning and waiting on the land use plan to be adopted by the county, staff recommends to deny this request to rezone. From A1 to R1, staff again feels that A1 is a more appropriate zone at this location at this time.
Thank you. Any questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? All right. Mr. Jones.
Well, good afternoon. Alan Jones with Stone Creek Consulting. So I want to kind of get the Planning Commission up to date. We did have a community meeting on Friday. We had probably 100 residents show up. So we had a great turnout. And they were able to voice their concerns and some of the things that they have, some issues and concerns with this proposed development. The original application at the 3.3 units is 780 units. Or 780 lots. At the meeting on Friday, we had kind of dialed that down to 700. 700 was still a number that was hard for the community to swallow. That's a big number. Looking at the density, from an overall density standpoint, you're only looking at, 1 extra unit per acre. But with the size of the property at 240 acres, 3 units per acre, you're looking at 700 lots. That was just too much for them to stomach. I did go back and talk with the developers over the weekend. They've kind of run the performas, and they are willing to concede down to 2.3 units per acre, which is just down to 550 lots. So that's taken another 150 lots off of the proposed development for this community. Talking to some of the residents, they're not opposed to development, and they know that this property is going to be developed. The developers are closing on the property, and they will be developing this property. With the density, a little bit of a contradiction, maybe what Brian said, but with the density of 240 acres, we can put 480 lots on this property with the A1 designation, which is 2 units per acre. But the developer's request is they are going to be upgrading a substantial section of WWTA's pressure main system in Sequoia Access Road. This will not be, we'll have gravity within the site, but we'll have a pump station that's kind of near the intersection of Igo Ferry and Hickson Pike. And then we'll have a force main system that takes it down to Sequoia Access Road, where we tie into the current line that the Sequoia nuclear plant uses, and then upgrading that line all the way to the high school. So it's about 23,000 feet of force main that developer is going to be investing in on his dollar, which is probably in the $4 million price tag. So the request for the 550 lots is to help absorb some of that public infrastructure that he's looking at. Yes, it's for his benefit, but it's also going to be a benefit for WWTA to bring in an additional 23,000 feet of new force main for the county. I know some of the issues currently on Green Pond Road, there is currently flooding. Whether we do anything with this development or not, they're always going to have flooding concerns there until solutions are put in place. From a grading and stormwater standpoint, this property can't discharge water off the site at any faster or any more volume than it is currently today through the engineering process. So 3 conditions that we would like to put on this proposed R1 is to have a density cap of 2.3 units per acre or 550 lots, provide a 25-foot perimeter buffer around the entire property. What this does, it'll respect the adjacent property owners. Because I know at the meeting, there were some comments made about, downspouts. If we have a lot right up on the property line, those downspouts are going to push water onto our neighbors' properties. Excuse me. So having that 25-foot perimeter buffer will allow us to kind of control and maintain the water flow from our site in an appropriate manner. And then the final condition is a traffic study is being conducted right now, and we would implement all recommendations from that traffic study as a part of this proposed development. But I'll yield the rest of my time to the community.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions for the applicant before we hear from opposition?
I do, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I think my question is for staff. First of all, thank you for the compromise, Mr. Jones. Going into this, I was very much opposed to the initial request, but I think this is like I said, this is definitely a compromise that I think I would be in favor of. My question is for staff. Would this be something, if this body made a recommendation to approve this to the county commission, would you change this resolution to reflect the three stipulations that he's agreeing to put on?
Yes, the resolution that comes from this body to the county commission would be the resolution from the planning commission, not staff. It'll be whatever the planning commission decides. If it is those three conditions or two conditions or whatever those may be, that resolution the county commission will have those, whatever this body
That's what I
so
thought.
chooses.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz.
And I will say number 3, as far as the traffic study, that's going to be required no matter what. And I don't think that's really required as condition per se, but.
Okay. And this was 2.3 dwelling units per acre at the 550 lots, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. So to the point with the traffic study not being part of the requirements, you did say that you would implement all recommendations. Who's conducting them?
Steve Meyer is conducting the traffic study. And he's run some preliminary numbers. And he actually just emailed out this morning. And according to his initial calculations, basically his comment was there's plenty of capacity in the roadways. I'm just the messenger.
Do you have any other questions? Okay. All right. We'll hear from the opposition. If you'd like to speak, come on up to the mic and line up on the left side of the room here. We do only have 9 minutes for opposition. So I would like, if you're wanting to speak, to go ahead and line up. Okay. Thank you.
Can you start the video?
I'll try.
Okay. My name is Derek Wilson. My address is 10629 Hickson Pike, Soddy Daisy, Tennessee. I own a 2-acre tract, a little less than 2-acre tract of land that is surrounded by the 247 proposed acres of this subdivision. Our family also owns over 100 acres on the south side of this subdivision. And I would like to see a show of hands of those who are against this subdivision in any regard. My biggest concern, watching the traffic, and I own the top of the hill on Hickson Pike, where they have 2 entrances onto Hickson Pike scheduled into this subdivision. Both of those entrances are on a blind spot, and I'm telling you now, people will be killed and severely injured there every year. Okay, there's no good roads around there for this development. If the traffic goes down Green Pond Road and has to take the Hamby Road southbound, they have to cross an extremely dangerous hill that's very steep, taking them out to Sequoia Access Road, where there's already people killed there at that intersection every year. We're also concerned about the flooding that is happening along Green Pond Road, and about half of our people here live in that area and have to deal with the flooding every year, every time that we have heavy rains. And I believe Brandon Bates is going to speak to you now regarding the flooding issues.
My name is Brandon Bates. I live at 2056 Green Pond Road. First off, I'd like to thank you guys for being here today and hearing our case. So I happen to be a federal stormwater inspector for obviously a federal agency. And I like the picture. I don't know if you guys can see the videos, but all the cars in that video were deemed totaled by the insurance companies. There were a couple houses that needed repair. The mobile home in the video was also nearly totaled. So, and we happen to live on a hill on Green Pond Road, so it butts up to this property. And there's the topography will show you there's a hill and a hill, and then the ravine that drains out of there. Also, one of my cousins lives at, and her house every time it rains, she gets flooded. Here's a picture right here that shows my uncle carrying out my cousin on his back because they can't get out of their house. I don't know if you can pass that around or if you have any way to see that, but there we've had 2 groups. We've been there for how many years? 20 years, and it's only got worse ever since stuff started being done back there. So and it's going to continue to get worse. I did the math. Obviously, I have formulas. So let's say that rainfall right there was nearly 3¼ inches. And that's not uncommon in Saudi where we get rain pretty constantly. So just on that property alone, 240 acres, if you get 3 inches of rain, that'd be nearly 20 million gallons of water dropping on that property in 24 hours, if that was in a 24-hour period. So that boils down to about 2 million cubic feet of water in 24 hours. So you would need 23.76 150 by 150 5-foot deep retention ponds to retain all the water that drops on that property in a 24-hour period. And I don't know if you look at the map, I don't know who drew that up, but that's not 23 150 by 150 retention ponds. And obviously, like I said, we live on a hill, so we're not as affected. Luckily, some of these residents here are not so lucky. Every time it rains, they have to wonder, am I going to have to get evacuated? Which in 2019, the fire department that's there has 4 daisy jurisdiction, so they can't handle it. I mean, Dallas Bay would be the closest, and Sheila and Barry, their son, works at Dallas Bay. And, they're 7-8 minutes away if something happens. And, again, traffic too. Stonewall Farms is another development that's right down Hickson Pike, approximately 4 or 5 miles. And in 8 years, there have been numerous traffic incidents there, a number of fatalities. In the last 4 years, the last 8 years, I know there's been 4 fatalities right there with Stonewall Farms. And that's a 4-lane road with a turning lane. So you're putting 2 entrances. It's been altered since that. I'm not sure if they couldn't update that, but you have now 2 entrances, one on each side of Derrick. One's coming out of a blind curve. One's coming off over the top of the hill. And people are going to die. Unfortunately, we've had multiple high school kids down that road. A couple years back, there were 2 high school kids that were leaving school, and that less than a mile down the road on Hickson Pike that got killed. So, you're just asking for it at that point. I don't know who the liability goes on if this goes through. And obviously, we're telling you it's going to happen. The developers are going to get their money and get out. They're not going to take liability. The flooding's just going to get worse and worse. Who's going to take liability for that? Because like I said, our house will be fine. A bunch of these residents here are not so lucky. So it's just a bad deal. And even at 560 houses, you're going to have to rezone it to R1, right? And after 9 months, like you said earlier, you can come back and apply to change that. So it's just, I don't know. Like I said, I have all my certifications, stormwater in 4 different states. I have an engineering degree from UTC, and I would have never drawn up those plans. That's terrible. So that's pretty much all I have to say. I just don't want people to get hurt. And I know if this development goes through, whether it's by flooding or obviously traffic. And what he didn't mention is the nuclear plant's right there. I actually work at the nuclear plant. It employs 250 to 500 people every day. And we have outages every 9 months, which also employ another 300, 500 people that are there for 3 months. So, and the traffic study that was mentioned was also performed on Thanksgiving weekend. So that's somebody got a good bonus for that one because nobody was working, nobody was driving. So
I want to make sure we've got time for
Yeah,
the people
yeah.
behind you to speak. So thank you.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, Chairman. Gene Shipley, 11668.
Mr. Shipley, there's 2 minutes left for opposition.
Walker Road, Saudi Daisy. And I am Commissioner District 1. And I've worked these people for a month. We've looked at every option there is. roads is a problem, overcrowding. But number one, gentlemen, is the flooding on Green Pond Road. And this is going to create more. So I guess what I'm asking, let's leave it A1. They can build a ride either 455 or 480. And that would be my request to you guys, because these people aren't able to pick up and leave because they have flooding every month. And it's unfair to them to add even more water. Thank you for your time.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Hartgrove. I live at 10521 Hickson Pike, Saudi Daisy. My question is the schools. Where are all these people going, kids going to go to school? The schools are already overcrowded, and you're talking about over 500 homes. There's 480 students at Allen Elementary. So what are the plans for that? And the roads are extremely dangerous as is. It's a 2-lane road with no turning lane.
Right, Mr. Jones?
So to answer some of the questions, with as far as the flooding, there's nothing that one developer can do to solve flooding in a part of the county area. And the engineers will go through all their due diligence to make sure that they don't increase that flooding. The reason, and another part of the reason for the R1 request from the A1, and I think at 550 is a really, really good compromise from the original density that we were requesting, is the R1 zone allows a 50-foot wide lot instead of a 60-foot wide lot. With the smaller lot size, that allows us over the whole development to reduce the amount of roads by almost a mile. And if we can reduce the linear footage of the roads, that's going to continue to reduce the amount of impervious area that will be added from this development. If we go with just the A1, we lose the 25-foot perimeter buffer. And obviously they're going to have to do the traffic impact study implementations regardless. But with this, this will allow us to provide that 25-foot buffer that wouldn't necessarily be guaranteed with an A1 development.
Can you explain the lot width road thing again?
Yes. So with the lots being 50-foot wide versus 60-foot wide, we can actually reduce.
So the R1,
from the
50 feet wide.
The A1 is a 60-foot wide lot. R1 is a 55-foot lot. So if we can reduce the width of the lot over the entire development, we're looking at a reduction of almost a mile of road, which actually would reduce a lot of impervious areas for this development.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
I do, Chairman. Thank you. So the proposed improvements to this WWTA stormwater, how would this improve the potential flooding that everyone seems to be concerned about, among other things?
Sure. So the WWTA investment, the 23,000 feet, that's just for sewer. That's not a stormwater system. That's a sewer system.
Okay.
And that's the discussion that the developer's been having with WWTA. I know they're obviously they're not going to turn down for free installations.
I know their main objective is to stop stormwater from entering into the sewer system.
Correct.
So
yes.
Any other assurances that you can give these folks about how you could stop the flooding? Or, I mean, in my experience, I know when you bring in development, they bring in the modern day infrastructure, stormwater infrastructure. How will this development help?
Sure. So with any development, and I'm not the engineer, but when the engineers go through their development and engineering process, they have to look at where all the outfalls, the acreage of all the outfalls on the property where it is today. And they'll calculate, okay, we've got X cubic feet of water leaving at this speed right now on this site in this area. And so when we go through the entire development plans, when they build their stormwater model, they have to prove that as the water leaves these sites through different control systems and control structure systems and innovative stormwater measures, that the water is not leaving the site any faster or with any more volume than it is currently today. And that's something that's reviewed both by TDEC and the county. The engineers will have to submit their hydrology reports to the county. They'll review them and say, yeah, we concur with these assessments or we don't. And if they don't concur, then they have to go back to the drawing board.
So, Mr. Jones, you're saying there is a due diligence there and a study that these stormwater professionals are going to conduct to ensure that the flooding will not exacerbate, but alleviate.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, no engineer is going to solve the current flooding unless you commission some massive study over the entire drainage area of Green Pond Road. There's
then the traffic study that's to be performed, they're going to come back with recommendations on what you can do to make it the egresses a little safer.
That's right. Yeah, Steve Meyer and his outfit is working on that traffic study. And I think there was a comment made that traffic counts may have been taken during Thanksgiving break. If that's the case, then the county has the right to, request a recount.
And Mr. Schultz, we don't have to put a condition on that they adhere to the recommendations from the traffic study. They already have to adhere to that, correct?
That's my understanding. This Todd wants to correct me. But once that traffic study is complete, if it requires improvements in order to move through the subdivision platting, they'd have to adhere to that traffic study.
That's all I have, Chairman. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Go ahead.
My question is if you guys would be open to A1 with the condition of the 25-foot buffer as well. Is that an issue? I know it may impact the performer, but that's my question.
Right. The issue with the A1, I mean, if we're going to do A1, we'll just withdraw the case and leave it A1. The request would be the R1 so that we could have the reduced lot size. And part of that concession would be to provide that additional buffer to the property. And we're talking, 70 extra lots over the current A1 zone?
Just a question about how long would it take to have that traffic study finished and presented?
I don't know that answer. I know it's being worked on currently. I don't know the answer when it'll be submitted or when it'll be completed, but it'll be a requirement prior to issuance of any preliminary plat.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Chairman. So I definitely want to see this go before Hamilton County Commission for final approval. It appears that it'll go before County Commission regardless, but I would like to see it go before County Commission with a recommendation by this body. And I'll put this in a form of a motion that it be approved with a maximum of 2.3 dwelling units per acre and with the 25-foot buffer. I'm saying that right? And those two conditions to be approved.
Mr. Chairman, it would also help staff if we, because that density number sometimes can be a little hard for me doing community lots for staff. If we'd also put the number of lots.
Okay, I'll add that the maximum number of lots be 550 and 2.3 dwelling units per acre, and with the 25-foot landscape buffer.
We have a motion with conditions. And it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So that'll be before. What I was saying was it will be before the county commission in January. I don't know exactly.
I'll look. It'll be 9:30 in this same room. It's the second Wednesday in January, which will be, third Wednesday in January. Is that right? The 17th, January 17th at 9:30 in this same room.
Could the folks that are here for Green Pond Road, make sure to clear the room so that we can move on with the meeting?
That would be show up the county commission. There should be handouts back there when he goes back to county commission.
Don't go anywhere, Mr. Bell. Where are you going? All right, next case on the agenda, and actually the first item under new business. So it's item 1. We're moving to the top of the agenda. It's case 2023-0192, and it's located at 1600 East 23rd Street, and it's an application to rezone from C2 and M3 to UGC. And staff is recommended to approve this case with conditions. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? Are you familiar with the conditions? And are you okay with them? Sure. Come on up.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Jeremy Just, Black Tide Emery Road, 725 Cool Springs Boulevard, Franklin, Tennessee, 37067. We are the owner and developer of the property. I appreciate you hearing our application today. Just to get to the point on the conditions, obviously we understand that our proposed project is in compliance with the River Ridge area specific plan, providing housing, both housing and retail. Both the councilwoman and the neighborhood has reached out to me, requesting, in some cases demanding, that we replace Food City. As you all know, they're moving downtown. It's always been our intent to keep grocery at this site. It's been here for 50 years, as far as we know, maybe longer. We intend to provide daily needs shopping for the community with this project. In order to do that, retailers like synergy. They like other retailers. In order to attract other retailers and hopefully attract a replacement grocery store, we would like the conditions to be as broad as possible so we can attract as many retailers as possible. With respect to adult-oriented businesses, we're fine. We have no intent of leasing to a business. Self-storage, self-service storage facilities, we're also fine. We have no intent of building self-storage here. What I'd like to request is a modification to the others. First, auto-oriented uses, just in that it's a little broad. That can mean a lot of things. For example, typical retail could include an O'Reilly, an AutoZone, Advanced Auto Parts, retail sales of auto parts versus machine shops. So I'd just like to specify that the auto-oriented use restriction is only for something like a machine shop or an oil change type use, but retail sale of auto parts would be allowed. The second, with regard to warehousing and wholesaling, UGC, which we're requesting today, restricts warehousing, but allows it restricted to 5,000 square feet or under. We'd like that to maintain and just allow us to comply with the zone that we're requesting. Animal hospitals, kennels, again, other retailers that we might want to attract to the site might include like a Petco or a PetSmart type use, but most likely a smaller, more regional user. A lot of times they have these services as part of those uses. We also intend to allow small animals to the residents in the proposed housing above the retail. So this would be a convenience item for the neighborhood and the users. With respect to drive-throughs, I think the intent here is more a concern about traffic with regards primarily to a QSR type use, Chick-fil-A or Raising Cane's type of use. A lot of grocery stores today have pharmacies. A lot of times they request drive-throughs for that pharmacy use. That drive-through typically is not used to sell groceries, anything else in the store except for the pharmacy. It's attached to the pharmacy. We have had plans in other projects around the country where we've provided a drive-through use underneath skyscrapers, multifamily housing. So if a user, in order to attract them to the site, requests that drive-through, we like the ability to provide that for the pharmacy use. Actually, I think that's it. So those
Thank
are.
you. Sure. Mr. Schultz, why did, I mean, UGC is such a great zone. Why, I mean, most of the time we don't see UGC with conditions other than when it's being used for residential, we'll use UGC residential only.
We have been consistent the past year, 2 years. I guess it stands a year, a little longer probably, along UGC's along Main Street, where we have conditioned out these auto-oriented uses, adult-oriented business, those type uses. I will say this is the first UGC zone along 23rd Street, 23rd Street. That's where we're being careful. We have a plan in place that recommends mixed-use residential. So that's where a lot of these conditions came from. And auto-oriented uses is specific to gas stations, service stations, those type of cities, not the O'Reilly. O'Reilly would be permitted.
It would be retail.
Yeah. It's your convenience store type things, but it has a definition in UGC what auto-oriented uses are.
And then warehousing and wholesaling are permissible under UGC.
It is limited to 5,000 square foot in total usable floor area. And maybe Dan wants to speak on this, but this being the first UGC out the door on 23rd Street and just right down the street from Montague Park, we're trying to be sensitive to this corridor and those uses. Dan, you want to?
One more question before Dan jumps in on the drive-throughs. You know, both of our Publix. Well, I know the Publix on the south side, on South Broad, it's a UGC. I don't know that it has a drive-through pharmacy though, but what the applicant's saying is true about even banks have drive-throughs, and I think maybe what's here, meaning no drive-throughs, is like McDonald's or Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, that would be basically, depending on how you read that, that would prohibit like a Walgreens would have an extra drive-through or whatever it is has a drive-through. Based on how that's written, that would, I think, prohibit those type uses.
It would prohibit a bank drive-through or a pharmacy drive-through.
You could have the bank, you just couldn't have the drive-through associated with that bank.
Right.
So I'd read it.
Okay. Councilman Woodford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hang tight.
Sure.
So Brian, UGC is along South Broad Street, which is booming. Amazing going on, I know. We have an animal hospital that's state-of-the-art and one of probably the most technologically advanced equipment in the country. We do have storage facilities along South Broad Street. We do have carry-out dining services. We have a lot of these things. Help me, and I'm not going to beat you up. I'm just trying to figure out what's the difference.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of other staff's not here.
I know. But here's my point.
Or it was Dan's fault.
Here's my point. In 2015, we swept C2 along South Broad Street to UGC. Okay, and that was, and we've got a brand new Publix down there in UGC. Took some work. Took a lot of work, but it's a really, really neat facility. And I'm worried that we're handcuffing the UGC. I would love to see, honestly, quite frankly, 23rd Street come along that same path.
Sure, and that's why we made a recommendation. The Planning Commission may disagree with staff. You can recommend approve no conditions.
And I think anybody can agree on the adult-oriented businesses. I'm sorry, I don't think that's. I think we can agree on that. The adult auto-oriented. I'm just wondering if we can get rid of these except adult-oriented businesses, because I think that would be suitable. And then also get with the community and Councilwoman Knoll and pick out and really take a deep dive in this. And you did say that Councilwoman Knowles reached out to you.
We did meet in person.
Okay, and that's great because you know what we normally hear at city council? Nobody's ever reached out to her. And so kudos, congratulations to you for doing that.
Thank you.
That's a first. So keep that going. I think there's a lot of potential here, and this might be the spark 23rd Street needs. So I'm going to hold there, see if there's any other comments. But if not, I'm going to make a motion to approve, and the only condition at this point is no adult-oriented businesses.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to say, we do see this as the spark, and we intend to lean into that, which is exactly why we want this to be a higher standard, as high a standard as we can get. I would actually say mini storage ain't a great thing for 23rd Street. There's probably some good storage out there already if you want some. And I would, again, the other things that are here, when we first saw this development, it was, multifamily, multi-story with, that we think again is a good use, and that's why we're supporting it. But again, I would say, we want to try to upgrade the corridor. You see that great landscaping? We'd like to see that up and down the corridor. We'd like to see better sidewalks. We want more lighting. All of those things come with, trying to create high value. And so again, I would say some of these uses like mini storage ain't great value to build. So.
Dan, let me ask you this. Let me ask the applicant. When you say mini storage, are we talking about the one-level orange doors? Or are we talking about the indoor facilities?
He's not asking for mini storage.
You're not even asking for mini
I'm
storage?
just saying why we were looking to sort of limit things.
Well, Dan,
there's already some adult. There's already some
and I
adult
will
uses
modify my motion to add in the mini storage definitely on that. But and then when it comes to kennels, I'll modify that one more time. They are indoor insulated kennels.
Correct.
Because we have dealt with that in District 7, I believe, and with an outdoor kennel, and it is not conducive to any type of residential facility being located near that. So those are 3 conditions that I would like. Now, there could be a whole host of them coming out of the meetings with the council representative. That's where I'd like to land right now, and that is in the form of a motion.
Mr. Chairman, so maybe sure up 3 conditions.
Yeah.
No adult-oriented business.
Yes.
Indoor or the mini storage, the basically 1 story are prohibited. And then make sure that kennels are allowed, but it's indoor insulated kennels, no outdoor storage. Or
That is
outdoor- or
correct.
outside kennels.
Yeah, and actually you can scratch the storage facilities if that makes Dan happier. So I think we're down to 2 conditions. Or I'm sorry.
No, 3.
3.
No, we're good. Yeah. Yeah.
Chairman, can we restate the motion just so everybody understands what the conditions are?
I don't think we have one yet. I didn't hear a
I
motion.
did make, that was.
Did you make a motion?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
I might be
Right,
willing to
please.
second it. I just want to hear what I'm seconding.
No, I didn't hear it as a motion anyway.
I did.
so
I made it as a motion. I was kind of wondering why you didn't ask for a second.
I wasn't paying any attention.
That's okay. I'm used to it.
I was looking for a motion to deny.
A motion to deny.
Kidding. Kidding.
Brian,
I
you
know,
can
I'm
read it.
actually, I for one, am very excited about this project. I don't get to vote on this sort of thing. But this is the best project we'll see all day. I mean, this is fantastic. This is great. I'm glad we got a staff recommendation to approve. And I guess we've got a motion to approve with 3 conditions: that there be no auto-oriented businesses, no self-storage facilities. No adult-oriented businesses, no self-storage facilities, and kennels would only be allowed inside and insulated.
Chairman, I'll second those and I'll speak to the conditions that Councilman Ledford laid out. Nobody lives right next to this. I don't know who the neighborhood is that you met with, but it's all M1 around there. I live about 5 blocks from it in a multifamily development in UTC. That's mostly what's around there. But I think most of the people in the area, and you're very familiar with the area as well, Chairman, would be fine with a bank that had a drive-through, because we'd have a bank for the first time in that area. And the PetSmart sounds great, or a smaller version of that. So I'm grateful that you're doing this, that you're taking what is about most of the time half vacant surface parking lot, most of the time. So I'll second Councilman Ledford's motion.
We have a motion and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next case on the agenda is a mandatory referral. It is MR 2023-0193, and this is for an unopened 1,200 block of Future Road and a 4,900 block of Lake Haven Drive. And it's right-of-way abandonment, has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present?
Mr. Chairman, I did talk to somebody last week. I think maybe who's they are opposed to this.
Yeah.
Well, I think they have some questions too, more than anything.
Okay. And the applicant, are you present? Okay. Mr. Schultz?
Yeah, this is MR 2023-193. This is a request to close a portion of an opened right-of-way. The right-of-way is 50 feet wide. You can see on the screen. It goes from Lake Haven Drive to these two parcels or lots to the right. Those two to the right of the screen, the front Bal Harbor. I believe that is the opposition's properties. Their concerns, I'll let them speak, but briefly talking to them on the phone last week is about this one parcel that fronts this unopened right-of-way, the ability to subdivide that and have access of this unopened right-of-way. Again, the applicant is not requesting the full closure, but only a small portion of it. The applicant intends to, I think, on his house to build an attached garage. And with that being a corner lot, it has 25-foot side setbacks. It makes it difficult to comply with the setbacks without having to go in front of the Board of Appeals to get a variance. I know those may or may not be granted, so they've chosen the route of going through a closure. Staff looked at this from a big picture. Wise, does it provide connectivity? Does it provide landlock to any parcels? It does not. Here's the aerial view, the single unit home. You can see the right-of-way there. It looks like they're already using the right-of-way for their driveway to come into it. And a single unit all around this to the north, south, and west. Here's a bigger view picture of the property of the blue circle. That is the applicant asking for the right-of-way. And again, you can see how all this connects over to Bal Harbor. That future right-of-way actually connected all the way over to Bal Harbor. And I'll show it a picture in a minute where a portion of this was abandoned back in the 60s, I believe. Here's a view of the site. The picture of the car, that's our car, and that's the driveway. That's where the right-of-way is. This is where that right-of-way goes. It looks like a little gravel driveway. This is Lake Haven Drive. This is the plat that was submitted with. You can see just the north of the future right-of-way is. They're closing, requesting to close the crosshatched area. Again, not the full width of the right-of-way. Again, here's the request, Bal Harbor. You can see the right-of-way eventually connected from Lake Haven Drive all the way over to Bal Harbor to the right where the arrow is pointing. That portion of the right-of-way was already abandoned by City Council. The eastern portion by ordinance number 7,000, which is shown on plat book 29, page 259. So the connectivity from Lake Haven Drive over to Bal Harbor went away due to that connectivity. Again, this is a request. Staff looked at it again from big picture view. Since the right-of-way is portion right-of-way is only being abandoned, staff recommended approval of that portion only.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff? Mr. Anderson?
Apologies if this is a question for an applicant, but why are we not just asking them to go to BOZA to get a variance on the setback instead of giving up land?
They could. We could suggest that again. I think sometimes coming to the Board of Appeals, what's the hardship? You're self-imposing your hardship. This is a perfectly square piece of property. What's irregular about it? Could be difficult to get the variance, would be my guess.
Got it.
Don't want to speak for that board, but that is an option they could go through.
Thank you.
All right. Let's hear from the applicant first, and then we'll hear from the opposition.
My name's Chris, and I live at 4914 Lake Haven Drive. The main thing we are trying to do is we have an existing single-car garage, but our house was built in like 1956. It's very small. I can't pull my car in there, neither can my wife. We have an existing porch on top of it, so we just wanted to extend out whether a 22 or 24-foot garage to cover our cars. We're currently 14 feet away from the 25-foot setback. So if there was no right-of-way right there, we wouldn't have to do anything. We could get the permits and go forward. And the reason we're just trying to do the 11-foot variance is because that's all we legally need to get back with the 25-foot setback. We've been maintaining the property for about 4 years since we bought it. And like mentioned earlier, the connection to the Val Harbor Road down below has already been abandoned. And so the future road is technically what it's called, but I do not foresee a future road ever being built in between me and David's house. And then David, the northern neighbor right there, is also here with me just to show some support. And what we'd like to do is do a more formal driveway and kind of clean up the area a little bit, just so it's not a gravel driveway in the middle of the neighborhood. And I'll yield my time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. You're in opposition?
No, I'm David.
Oh,
I
okay.
own the house that's actually between Chris's and that power line right there. I'm 4916 Lake Haven Drive, David White's. And Chris and I maintain that we manicure it. And he's a great neighbor, and I'm here in full support of y'all working with him on this, because great neighbors like this are hard to find.
Thank you. Sir, come on up.
Good afternoon. My name is Gary Goforth, and I'm speaking on behalf of Kathy Wilmoth Goforth and Denise Wilmoth Woody, owners of 4942 Val Harbor Drive and the adjacent wooded property on Val Harbor Drive and on the road in question off Lake Haven Drive. They own about 2.5 acres, with most of this property the last undeveloped prime real estate in the Val Harbor subdivision. Closing this road will deny access to one of their undeveloped lots, their upper lot, which adjoins the future road, thus landlocking an extremely valuable piece of a prime real estate. Due to the terrain and steep grade going up from Val Harbor Drive up to Lake Haven Drive, it's economically unfeasible to develop that property through access from Val Harbor Drive. The road is just, the driveway would be too steep and would just be impractical to do so. This upper lot affords whomever, either us or whoever buys that property, a magnificent view of Chickamauga Lake's main channel. This lot, in our opinion, is prime real estate with high dollar value potential that we want to maximize to the greatest potential as possible. We've recently had discussions with a developer to determine the land value and the feasibility of selling the property for future development. Of course, those discussions are now on hold until we decide what to do. So in addition to the property becoming landlocked if this road is closed, I want to mention another point. And that is to stress that there are 3 separate right-of-ways that pass through that road and gain access off of this future road. The city has a stormwater runoff that goes down into the lake, and that would not be accessible if this road is closed. The second right-of-way is city sewers, also are accessed through that road in question. The third right-of-way, and the one that has been used the most, and it gives us the most concern, is a large EPB power line that runs parallel to this road from Lake Haven and then into the Wilmoth property. A number of years ago, the Wilmoth sold the right-of-way for $1 to the EPB, which they put used to develop Val Harbor Phase 2, which is the old Chattanooga Public School property, on the other side of the Bal Harbor Slough. EPB used this road to replace an old existing power line with new, higher, stronger poles. Fiber optics and cable lines have now been added to those utility poles. I mention this because EPB advised the Wilmets they would need to access onto their property from time to time to work on their lines. EPB advised them at that time this road would be used to gain access to their upper property. EPB confirmed this point again a few weeks after the Wilmets fenced in their backyard. The Wilmets installed a double gate at the bottom of the property close to Bal Harbor Drive, thinking this gate would be used to access the power lines. EPB indicated that because of this steep grade and soft ground, their line trucks would not be able to make it up that hill. So double gates were needed to be installed at the end of this future road in order for EPB trucks to have access to their lines. The Wilmets complied at their expense and installed double gates. Even at that time, it was asked if any kind of improvements needed to be made from this future road onto their property. EPB indicated that no improvements would be necessary as long as they had a way onto the property from Lake Haven Drive. So in summary, it's important to keep this road open, or at least have some type of access to this upper lot off of Lake Haven Drive to prevent this property becoming landlocked. And for the city and EPB to have trouble-free, easy access when repairs or maintenance is needed to the various right-of-ways and the least amount of property damage possible. In my opinion, the easiest and simplest way to accomplish Mr. Lee's addition to his home would be to grant a variance on this buffer between new construction and this road. However, after speaking with legal counsel, I understand the city's reluctance to limit variances only to extreme cases. I also understand the Planning Commission's pressure to close as many of these underutilized roads as possible. So with this in mind, I would suggest that if the Planning Commission decides to recommend closure of this road, that a condition be granted for an easement for a driveway from Lake Haven Drive to our upper lot that would be wide enough to get an EPB line truck into this upper lot. I think that would make everybody happy. And I thank you.
Thank you. Well, to be clear, it's just a section of the right-of-way that's being asked to be abandoned. I think it's how much of that right-of-way, Brian?
It's 11
feet.
foot of the
That
total.
would leave 39 feet for the purpose that the applicant just stated.
Correct.
Okay. What's the will of the commission in regards to this? We have a motion to approve. And just so you know, sir, just to reiterate this, we do have a motion that has been seconded. This diagram, can you pull it up real quick? This one right here. Let
me go.
It's just 11 feet of that's being abandoned, not the entire road. And so what you've
my
asked.
understanding from Brian that the whole future road is being abandoned.
No, it's 11 foot.
If it's only the right of way, we have no problem.
It's just 11 feet.
So you're saying that EPB will have access from Lake Haven Drive into our property through the double gates that we had provided.
I don't know about that, but what I do know is that what is currently a 50-foot right of way will only be narrowed by 11 feet. So
okay,
it'll be a 30.
Well, we have no objection to that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is case 2023-0194, and it's located at 4228 and 4230 Benton Drive and 4057 South Access Road. And it's an application to rezone from R2 and C2 to M3, and staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present? What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is 2023-0195, and this is located at 2603 Ocoee Street. And this is an application to rezone from R1 to RTZ. And staff is recommended to approve the applicant's request with conditions. And the conditions that it be single unit detached and 0 lot line units only, and no parking between the residential dwellings and the street. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? All right. I guess I can stop asking if the applicant's present. Mr. Schultz.
Sure. And before we get started, does anybody here, is this their bag of maybe food that's here? If not, we'll throw it away. I'm not sure what it is. We'll throw it away if nobody wants to claim it. So we'll throw it away. Case 2023-195. This is a request to rezone from R1 to RTZ for single unit residential. It's just less than an acre in size. Proposed number of units is 5. There's a density of 5.4 dwelling units per acre. Looking at the zoning map, to the north, south, and east of this property is zoned R1. To the west of this property is R1, and immediately abutting this property is RTZ. So there is precedent area for RTZ. There's no recent zoning history for this piece of property. However, to the west, immediately abutting this property in 2020, those 3 properties, actually was 1 lot at the time, was rezoned from R1 to RTZ. And it currently has 3 single unit residential dwellings on it. The property is 2603 Ocoee Street. This picture does show a single family home. I believe that home has been torn down. This is 530 feet to the east of Chamberlain Avenue. It does have some topography issues on the site. To the back, it's very narrow but very long lots or lot. Here's the house. I believe the house, I may have spoken to the house is torn down. It is still present there. If it is approved, I guess the house will be removed. Here's a picture of the site. Another view of the site. This is south of the site. You can see it's all single family detached dwellings. This is east of the site, another single family dwelling. These are the 3 single unit dwellings that are immediately to the west of this property. See, those are 3 single family detached units. Here's a view of Ocoee Street looking towards downtown. This property is in the Historic River Ridge Area Plan adopted in 2020. The place type recommendation is urban residential. The primary uses being single unit detached, cottage courts, and ADUs. Here's a closer view of that place type recommendation. Again, it's urban residential, but you want smaller lots in the urban area. This is the site plan submitted with a request, taking 1 lot and creating 5 single unit detached dwellings. Again, it's a very long lot. You can see very irregular shaped in terms of depth, that is. The request with conditions is compatible to Area 3 Historic River Ridge Plan. It is compatible with adjacent land use and development reform. Staff did recommend 2 conditions to between no parking between the building and the street to comply with Area 3 urban place type goes. So staff recommends approve with 2 conditions, single unit detached and 0 lot line units only, because RTZ does allow townhouses. And then no parking between the residential dwelling and the street. This is the forced parking to the rear of the development, which is a place type go. So staff recommends approve with those 2 conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? Mr. Jones.
Good afternoon, Alan Jones with Stone Creek Consulting. So with this site, we're looking at just continuing the precedent that's next door with the RTZ. The owner of the property, she did do some due diligence to see what it would take to save that house. I mean, it is a beautiful house, but due to the condition that the house is in, the economics just don't work to put that much money into that house. And then the value of that house will just be way out of context for the community. So instead, we're looking at removing that house, which is vacant right now, and then putting in 5 single-family detached homes. I have no issues with RPA's first condition. The second condition, the developer is looking at putting putting garages on these homes, but due to the topography of the site, access to the rear is going to make it challenging. When I talked to Councilwoman Coonrod, she actually asked me why I wasn't putting more units on this thing, and I said because we've got some topography issues in the rear. So putting rear access to the back would also make us lose a lot, just to have that kind of shared access drive to the rear. So our request is that we just, that Planning Commission consider RPA's recommendation, but just striking the parking from the front. If you look at the rest of the homes along the street, they do all have parking in the front. This is a dead-end street too, so it's not a major thoroughfare within the community. Obviously, there's opposition here. I did mail out letters. I didn't hold a community meeting, but I did mail out letters to all the surrounding residents. So I'll just yield my time to hear what they have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. We'll hear from opposition. Keep in mind, total time's 9 minutes. So state your name and address when you come up to the microphone.
Yes, my name is Benjamin Ballard Sr. I stay in 2605 Ocoee Street, right next door. I thought the people was great neighbors, but they decided to do what they did. My concern is not being a duplex there or a Section 8 housing be put there. That's what I don't want. That's my main concern. And maybe it could be maybe 2 houses instead of 5. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
My name is Deborah Bentley, and I live at 2606 Ocoee Street. And we already don't have anywhere to park. I mean, we got one way in and one way out. It's like a cul-de-sac because the street has been blocked off, and we have to go and turn around and come back down. We have driveways. But when they built those other 3 houses, they claimed they was going to do this, do that. They parked all in front of the street, and we have no way of getting up and down the street. And then that house, it's been like that for so many years. I thought maybe it was already gone. I thought they would have already toned it down because it's really just a pest. Thank you.
My name is Kenya Houston. I'm the homeowner at 2602 Ocoee Street, so I am directly across. And I am here in opposition, and to speak to what he was saying about the other homes that are already there, those people do not use their driveway. So we are already subjected to them parking on the street. And it does not sound like he has a clear plan for parking now because he's saying use the bag, and now it may not be accessible. So it looks like they'll be put to park on the front as well. I also cite safety concerns with that being, this is not a cul-de-sac. The city has created this dead end by closing off the top of that street. So it's already not safe, not accessible to ambulances, medical services, police. And then as my neighbor also stated about those homes being built and allowing the Section 8 people who ultimately are not responsible for their property, crowding those in with us who are trying to maintain a safe, respectable place to live. Thank you.
My name is Betty Ridley, and I live at 2515 Ocoee. And I can't see no 5 houses been built right there at that spot because I don't know where how we get to park anyway. It's hard to back out your house as it is. It's something you're already across the street when you back out your property. So I hope that don't happen. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Samuel Caffey. I'm at 2600 Ocoee Street. I'm not messed up with, new development. The thing is, they're trying to do 5 houses amongst the 3 that they already done. If you look at that, what is the standards of house being so much feet apart? 11 foot, 12 foot?
Well, it depends on the zone.
Depends on the zone.
Yeah.
Okay,
In,
those
in
houses like,
RTZ, I think it would be 12 or 10. It's 12 in RTZ.
I think so. Is that right?
Because it would be
I
6
think
feet
so.
from
I
the
think 6 foot
property
property
line.
line's 12.
In RTZ, when you do.
okay,
detail.
well, I think they already messed up with these three right here. They're about maybe 9 or 10.
Well, they may have also built them as 0 lot line, right? So
Could
then
be
they could
RTZ.
be 0 and 6.
Let's go back and look if there's any
So
conditions on
it
that.
could be different from project to project.
Okay. Thing is, I think 5 is too many. Not really concerned on them building a house there, but I think, 1 or 2 would be great, not 5. It's just too congested on that road, with, the 3 they have already built. And when they don't use their driveways much, they park on the street. And the thing is, if you put more houses there, and when those people are backing out, you still got other neighbors that's coming up and down that street. And when people are bagging out of that unit, it's always some congestion, going right there. Then you got a street right there at Diamond. There's no stop sign. People come out of there, just rolling, and you got people coming down Ocoee. So I've seen wrecks, happen right there, right there in front of my eyes. And, with the congestion of, so many houses right there in one spot, it's just not going to work like that. Like I say, 1 or 2, be fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson?
The last gentleman who spoke, can I ask you, sir, can I ask you a couple of questions? Can you come back for a moment? Are there people parked on the street on this road every day?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay. Have we, the city, ever, I'm with the city, have we ever done any parking enforcement, ticketed cars that are parked there, anything like that?
No, we just go over and ask them, could they move their car in the driveway? They be polite, and do that, but, just all the time.
Okay.
Right. We got no parking signs on our side. We stay on the right-hand side. They stay on the left-hand side. So, when you're coming up and down this street, you have to pretty much run up on the curve, which, some of them don't even have a curve. You're going to run off into the, into the grass area. And, just congested a lot.
So regardless of what, and other individuals who are here, regardless of what happens today with this case, I'm going to ask CPD, because it's outside the parking authority boundary. I'm going to ask CPD to do some traffic enforcement and some parking enforcement through there.
Great.
Usually tickets carry a lot more weight than somebody asking nicely.
I understand that.
So hopefully, regardless of what happens with this, it sounds like you've got a safety concern no matter what. So we'll send CPD out there.
Yeah, if you could get us a stop sign out there at Diamond Street, would be great for that.
Didn't promise a stop sign, but we'll see what we can do. I appreciate the effort. Thank you.
Mr. Jones?
Couple points of clarity. This is not the same property owner and builder that built the homes next door. This is a different builder. And that's kind of talking about the parking concerns. That's part of our request, is that we do a single car garage plus the 2-car parking pad in front of the homes, and have the building set back in an appropriate manner. So that way, that's potentially up to 3 parking spaces per unit for each home. That would help alleviate maybe some of the neighbors' concerns regarding parking on the street. As far as the housing type, it's going to be market rate / workforce housing. There's no intentions of doing Section 8 housing. We're not going to do duplexes because we're agreeing to the condition of single-family detached homes. But I think that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? What will the separation be on these? Do you know?
Right now, it's either, I think we're looking at a 12 to 13 foot separation between units.
And is there quite a bit of topography there between the?
There is. The property does start to drop. It starts to drop off toward in the back. So there may be some exposed foundations possibly on these kind of going toward the back.
What's the will of the commission? And regarding conditions, just a motion to approve the staff
So
recommendations.
no parking in the front.
Okay. So
You just want condition number one, I think.
thank you. So we have a motion to approve with one condition, single unit detached, 0 lot line units only. And it has been properly seconded. Who seconded that? Did you? Councilman What did? Or Mr. Lehman did. Any discussion? Mr. Maybe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question for staff. Mr. Schultz, does RTZ have any requirements for off-street parking?
Yes, it would.
It does.
It does. Just like any other residential zone, based on the number of units that play. I think it's 2. Is it 2? I think it's 2. It's either 1.5 or 2. I'm not sure. So it does have off-street parking requirements.
Okay. Thank you very much. That answers my question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Case 2023-0197 has been withdrawn. Case 2023-0198, located at 5910 Highway 153, and unaddressed property in the 6200 block of Wilder Road. It's an application to rezone from R1 and R4 to C2 convenience commercial zone. And staff has recommended to deny the applicant's request and approve other. Is there any opposition present? And Mr. Jones, are you going to present on this case? Okay. Mr. Schultz.
Yes, case 2023-198. This is in Hickson Highway 153. This is a request to rezone from R1 and R4 special zone to C2 convenience commercial zone for lodging and commercial uses. This property is roughly 7 acres in size. To the north is R4 and R1. To the east of this property is R1. To the south is C2 and R4 and R1. And the west along Highway 153 is C2. So there is precedent area for C2. There is no zoning history in this piece of property. However, the property to the west abutting Highway 153 was rezoned back in 2018 from R2 to C2. So there has been some zoning history nearby. This contains what I think used to be a single family dwelling. I believe it's a vacant structure now. To the north is a church. To the east is vacant land. And to the south is commercial, an office, and single unit residential. Then to the west across Highway 153 is a commercial shopping center and a convenience store. There are some slopes over 26% to the rear of this property, but abutting Highway 153 is relatively flat. Here's a view of the site. 153 is just to your west. The picture. Another view of the site. This is the church that's north of the site. This is south of the site, the commercial establishment. This is the shopping center to the west across Highway 153. This is looking north on Highway 153. The site's just to your right-hand side. This property is in the Hickson North River plan adopted in 2005. The plan recommends a medium business mix for those parcels fronting 153 and low-density residential as you get back off of 153. The medium business mix is primarily C2 type uses or convenience commercial zone, C5 neighborhood commercial zone, those type uses. And to the rear, where it recommends low-density residential, that's primarily single-unit residential dwellings. Here's a closer view of those place type or plan recommendations. There's a site plan submitted with the request. You can see just that those parcels abutting 153 are shown as proposed use. And to the back southeast side, that's where the detention pond will be. This request is partially compatible with the adopted plan, which is the Hickson North River plan. Again, it recommends medium business mix for those parcels abutting 153. So staff recommends to deny the applicant's request, but approve something differently. Approve only those parcels, so that parcel fronting Highway 153 that's zoned R4 to C2. Leave the remainder parcel, which is R1, leave that R1 to serve as a buffer between the commercial uses and the residential uses to the east. This would also eliminate the need for conditions. So again, staff recommends to approve only the front parcel fronting 153 as C2 and leave the remainder as R1.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions?
Good afternoon, Alan Jones with Stone Creek Consulting. As Brian mentioned, this property is under contract and they're looking at putting a hotel at the site and a couple out parcels, commercial out parcels to go with that hotel site. As far as the only condition that I wanted to discuss is the R1 piece in the rear. If you look at the site plan, if you pull that up, Brian. So the client has both portions under contract because we're putting stormwater on this R1 piece of property. But we do need a small portion of the property for some additional parking for the hotel, mostly for the staff that's going to be working at the hotel. So my request for Planning Commission's consideration would be to rezone that to C2, but have a condition that only stormwater and parking is allowed on that back track, so that we can accommodate the parking requirements. And the only reason for the stormwater requirement is I know if we put just parking, if I get the LDO permit, they'll see only parking and they won't let me put stormwater there. So that's just a clarity for LDO staff that we can put stormwater and then a little bit of parking in the rear. If it does stay, R1, we can still put our stormwater back there, but then we also have to buffer against our own property, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because when we go through the permitting process, we'll have to buffer against our own R1 property. So our request is just to rezone the whole thing to C2, but the back tax parcel have the condition of only parking and stormwater use only.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions for the applicant? All right. I saw a couple hands in opposition. Was that right? Yep.
I'm Julian Camp, 5900 Highway 153, right next door. As far as rezoning, we have no problem with it being rezoned straight commercial, period. The problem that we have is when they build across the street at Academy Sports, we did not come to that meeting because we had no problem with it being rezoned commercial. They also approved the traffic light that's there at that time, which we knew nothing about. And it cut off being able to legally turn left into our property, which we've been at for 54 years now. That is the first issue. And I mean, we know they're going to want to use that area of the traffic light as an access to the property, which enters right on our property. It's not even on that property at all. The other issue, hopefully he addressed that with the pond back there, because it's always been a wet weather stream that runs off that hill behind everything. The area for probably 50 feet between our property line and onto their property in a major storm flooding, it'll be 10, 15 foot deep in water between us. That got worse when they built Academy. We're glad Academy's there, but that got worse when they built Academy because it took off half the drainage that went under the highway, which drained off to that side. The other issue that we have is everything that refers to Wilder Road right there. Wilder Road runs, right down behind all of us. The power lines and water lines and all that runs up what used to be considered West Wilder Road. It's never been a road. It's always been a power line. When I was a kid, we used it for a bicycle trail. So you come up that hill, it crosses the neighbor's driveway, comes across and then crosses our driveway and skirts the edges of the property. So that road's never been developed. It's never been since we were there. And actually it probably goes back to, 1800s or something. That was a proposed road that never got built. That's pretty much our concerns. Hope I'm pretty clear what I'm. So I guess that's
Any
it.
questions for opposition? Thank you.
Excuse me, sir.
Mr. Anderson.
Have you spoken with anybody at the Chattanooga Division of Transportation about the issue with the light and your property? Okay, if you'll stick around, I'll put you in contact with someone after this meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Jones.
Just a few points of clarification. The only access to our property will be on our property. We won't be utilizing adjacent properties for access to this site. We'll just continue to work with both the city and the state as far as the final driveway location for this site. Within the engineering, if there are potential streams or wetlands on site, hydrology determination will be completed as part of the LDO submission. And if there is concern with potential access to this steep right of way in the rear, I'm fine with the condition that the only access to the site is from Highway 153.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one question. The hotel that's being built, Hampton Inn, what is that?
Still working on the final agreements with the hoteler. So we can make that announcement once it's formalized.
Mr. Anderson.
Brian, can you put the condition slide back up there?
We don't really have any conditions from staff, but
That's the one I was talking about. Well, you're about to have a condition, if enough people agree with me. So I'm going to move to approve this request as submitted with the which means C2 for the entire property with the condition of stormwater and parking only on the rear parcel. You're right about LDO. They're going to say, where's your stormwater?
Right.
Yeah. And addressed at the 6200 block of Highway 153 and not the unopened road.
We do have a motion that has been seconded. Dan.
I was going to ask the applicant, is there a reason they can't have parking further south on the site?
We can, it would just require some substantial retaining walls. Trying to avoid that.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Next case is 2023-0199. And this is located at 5126 and 5132 Strickland Circle. And it's an application to rezone from R2 to R3. And staff is recommended to defer for 30 days. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? And are you okay with deferring for 30 days? Would it be helpful to hear from the applicant first and then staff? I think maybe.
Well, the reason we're asking for deferrals in the staff recommendation, last time, property to the east of this property to the north was rezoned to R3, recommended to rezone to R3. Staff didn't support it at that time. It's not been officially approved by city council on the rezoning, so we didn't want to put a comment that this is an extension of the zone. City council set a new policy in this area for R3 to be appropriate because it's being deferred, I think, until December 16th. We're trying to wait till city council takes action on that zoning case and then have this appear back on the agenda in January. Because the plan doesn't support R3 at this location.
So your recommendation based off the plan would be to deny.
Yes, if we went strictly off the
You
denial.
are aware that planning commission recommended approval on another case and it's before city council.
Correct. It's been deferred to city council. I think until December 16th, I believe is my, or our notes say, and such time, until that happens, we are not wanting to say it is an extension of a new zone. City council set a new policy for that.
Okay.
And maybe the applicant can say, I think it is December 16th.
Mr. Price.
Thank you. Mike Price, MAP Engineers. One important distinction to make, however, is that City Council actually has taken action in the fact that they passed this on first reading. We requested it to be deferred. And the reason is one of the conditions that is pending to be heard next Tuesday evening dealt with the density. Because we are adding more property, we need to adjust that unit count coming before the council next week. So we didn't want to approve a condition and then have to come back and then re-amend the zoning conditions. So what we wanted to do is sort of move this one forward, let city council know that it is coming before them, and then ask that that condition next Tuesday be amended or taken off the board, whatever the case may be, as I work with Councilman Smith on that. So if you remember from the first meeting, some of you that were here, there were a couple people who expressed some concerns by buying these two properties and adding it to it actually takes out their concerns as it related to Strickland Circle. So this actually helps clean up the issue. So if it is deferred today, unfortunately, that puts us into February before it would be heard at City Council. So our hope is to be heard next Tuesday night at City Council, pass that motion, and then bring this second motion to them in January and then complete the process up. So that's the reason we're requesting not a deferral today, but to pass the motion as requested.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, is this the property with the little substation on it?
No, sir.
This isn't the one with the little office or the little house that was a daycare originally?
This is the one that had the nursery center on it.
Yes.
In through there. And then Strickland Circle is this sort of a quasi-public-private alley that came through.
Further up Dixon Pike, I'm tracking you now. Councilman Smith's had his fingertips, our fingerprints all over this one.
He has, and we've had multiple email discussions, texts, and that sort of thing.
Okay,
Yes,
and I'm aware of I know what he's trying to pull off, so I will make a motion to approve, because I'd like to see that follow through with efficiency.
We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Thank you very much.
Carries. Next case on the agenda is case 2023-0200, and this is located at 1413 East 17th Street. It's an application to rezone from R2 to RTZ. Staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? And do you have any issue with the conditions? We have a motion to approve the staff's recommendation. It has been seconded, and Councilman.
You can just raise your hand. Hopefully you will say yes. You've been in contact with Councilwoman Knoll. Oh, okay, that's good. All right, thank you. We're making progress. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is case 2023-0201, located at 1413 Lovelady Lewis Road. And it's an application to rezone from A1 to R1. Staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present?
Mr. Chairman, we did also receive opposition email. It should be in your packet.
All right. And is the applicant present? All right. Mr. Schultz.
Case 2023-201. This is a request to rezone from A1 Agriculture District to R1 Single Family. Proposed use is single unit residential. That's roughly 25 acres in size. Proposed number of units is 70. That's a density of 2.8 dwelling units per acre. Looking at the zoning map to the north is A1. Further north along Sequoia Access Road is R1. R5. To the east of this side is A1. To the south is A1, and to the west is A1. A little further west, southwest along Lovelady Lewis Road, I do have R1 that's sitting there. So it is pressed in the area for R1. There's been no zoning history on this piece of property, but again, adjacent to the west along Lovelady Road, we do have several cases of R1. So in the general area, there has been history for R1 and some PUDs in this general vicinity. This is 1413 Lovelady Lewis Road. It's a single family dwelling and a large vacant piece of property. To the north is vacant property. To the east across Dallas Hollow Road is single unit residential. To the south is single unit residential, and to the west is single unit residential. Here's a view of the site. Another view of the site. This is Dallas Hollow and Lovelady Lewis Road. This is south of the site. East of the site, west of the site. This is the site plan that was submitted with the application, again showing 70 lots. Rezone from A1 to R1 does not require a site plan, but they did submit one, so it does show 70 single-family lots. The request with conditions is compatible adjacent land uses. It is compatible adjacent density and development reform. Again, there is no land use plan in this area to provide guidance if higher density is appropriate. Because R1 would permit 7.28 dwelling units per acre, even though they're nowhere near that. So staff recommends a condition limiting the number of units to 70, absent the land use plan providing that guidance. So staff recommends to approve with one condition, a maximum of 70 residential lots.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff? All right, we'll hear first from the applicant.
My name's Campbell Lewis. My address is 716 Spears Avenue, Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm the owner of the property. I would like to point out the application included a site plan because it was my understanding that any property over 5 acres had to have a site plan accommodate if you're rezoning to R1. But I may have misunderstood that, or
I misunderstood. I forgot we changed that policy to anything over 5 acres. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We did change that.
Yeah, so I showed 70 lots. I that's not what I necessarily would like to have as a condition on the property. I am fine placing a condition on the property, but 70 lots is, not ideal. I'd prefer it to be like 115 or so, 125 if we're doing, if we're going to place a condition on it. But yeah, I guess that's all I'd like to say. I'd be happy to talk to any of the neighbors as well. I actually grew up on this street, and I thought I'd say that too.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? All right. We had some folks here in opposition. If you'd wish to speak, come on up to the mic.
My name's Terrell Horton. I live at 1407 Love Lady Lewis Road. I live right next door to property here. We're concerned about traffic. The entrance to this property is going to be Love Lady Lewis Road, a small road, pig trail road. It's going to be dangerous. Also concerned about flooding water off the hillside where he's going to build. I have 28 acres next to him. If he builds that many houses, I'd like to have a buffer between me and him. I think 70 houses is way too many. He's wanting 120. It's just unreal. On that road we live on. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Did anybody else wish to speak in opposition? If you do want to speak and you're here in opposition, come on up to the mic now.
I'm Pamela Horton. I'm Carol's wife and live at the same address in 1407. I've lived on that property my whole life. Today's my birthday. I'm 72. And I don't have a problem with building around in our area, but I do have a problem with that many homes. I like my space. I like my privacy. And I just feel like if the way that they've got that laid out, that many homes, they're going to be looking right over into our backyard. I can't walk out the back door without somebody maybe looking over to see what's going on in my backyard. And I'm not a hateful neighbor or anything like that. I like to mind my own business, and I like my neighbors to mind their own business. And I'm concerned with that many houses that we'll have somebody along the way that will be wanting to nose around in our property, since we have so much property, the 28 acres right beside it, that we like to ride our four-wheelers around our property and stuff like that. And that's not open for the neighbors to come and use. My mother and daddy bought that property in 1950. And that's something I would like to hand down to my kids too when I'm gone. So I'm just concerned about it. I hope we don't put that many homes there right beside us. That's what I'm concerned with. All the traffic, like my husband said, the road is narrow there and it's dangerous. We have hills and curves in that area. That the cars start going down through there, there'll be wrecks. It's a problem. And I'm concerned about the water too, just like he said. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Lewis.
totally understand your arguments. I get that. It's just kind of part of it, you know. And I'd love to talk to you guys after this. Like I said, I grew up on this street right down the road from y'all. So, yeah, I'd love to talk to y'all after this. And something I did want to point out there's also a case that's not shown on here that kind of set precedent. And that's I think it's RT1. It's Shortleaf Lane across the street from Dallas Holler Road from this property. And that was rezoned from, I think, A1 to RT1 or RTZ. Yeah, RTZ there. But I just wanted to throw that in there too.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Chauncey.
Question for staff. The 70 lots, did you say that came out at 2.8 dwelling units?
The 70 lots equals 2.79 dwelling units per acre. Just keep in mind, early on the agenda, just I guess a mile, 2 miles north of this site, we had a condition 2.3 on 225 acres.
Mm-hmm.
So A1 has a max density of 2 dwelling units per acre. So he could get, as it's presently zoned, about 50 lots gross.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then by going to R1 with the 70 lots as proposed, that's 2.79. Now, if you don't put a condition on it, it can go much higher than that, of course.
Where'd your staff arrive at this number recommendation?
2.79?
Yeah.
On the site plan. Because he showed 70 lots.
Oh, I see.
We conditioned it to number of lots. Because again, the R1 can permit much larger density.
So hit the site plan that he submitted had 70 lots?
Yes, it's on the screen now.
Do you know what you would have recommended if he didn't provide a site plan?
I don't know. The one right above it, you had 220 some lots, acres. Without a plan, it'd be hard to suggest what we'd recommend. There's multiple zones in this area. You're right, because it's over 5 acres. We do now require concept plans. Again, I think if it's much more density than that, we'd probably recommend denial. Since we don't have a plan to offer that guidance.
Just keep in mind, it's not just a land use plan. At the end of this land use, this comp plan for the city and the county, we're going to try to have a list of actual prioritized transportation projects. And that's a real issue here, is that we just feel like we need to be as cautious as we can be about sort of just zoning in different areas of the county until we really understand the transportation system.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the staff recommendations.
We have a motion to approve and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next case is item 11 on our agenda. It's case 2023-0202, and it's located at 9120 Lovell Road, and it's special permit for residential plan unit development. And staff is recommended to deny the applicant's request and approve others. Mr. Schultz, is there any opposition present? Mr. Schultz?
Sure. I don't believe we received any opposition either. This is case 2023-202. This is not a rezoning request. This is a PUD amendment to add 3 additional lots. The acres of this development is 13.3. The number of units is 28. That's a density of 3.39. Again, this is a PUD amendment. It's already zoned R1. In case 2016, this site was rezoned from A1 to R1. Then in 2020, a portion of this site received a special permit for a PUD. Here's the current PUD. Total number of acres is 11. Number of units is 25. That's a density of 2.25. And the number of acres of community lot is 6.6. The proposed PUD, again, increases the acres from 11 to 13.3. Number of units goes from 25 to 28. The density goes down from 2.25 to 2.10. And the acres of community lot stays the same at 6.6, just to give you an overview of the current PUD versus the proposed PUD. This is the site plan or the PUD plan with the previous PUD in 2020. You can see it's 24 lots and 2 community lots. This is the site plan of the current site plan. This is the current property. It does have a power line easement across the southern portion of the property. To the north, a single unit residential. To the extreme north, it's institutional. And to the south, a single unit residential. Here's a view of the site. You can see that power line that comes across the property. Another view of the property, the site. This is the site under construction. This is due north of the site. This is West Ridge Trail. The site's on the left-hand side. This is east of the site. Another view, this is due north of the site. Again, this is the previous PUD plan that was approved. This is the revised site plan that was submitted for this request. Again, I'm going to try to explain this, but the area in red is the 3 new lots. If you look to the north, those 3 weird lots to the north, those are what's being added to this PUD. The one in red is lot 1, which is a flag lot that flags all the way down to the west and back down to this proposed public road in this PUD. The area in blue, which is in the middle, is another flag lot that comes down to a public road. And the area in green, which is lot number 3, fronts West Ridge Trail Road. Even though those lots front a public road, they're not going to be using that road for access. Lena Lane it's a private road that serves as access to these roads. That Lena Lane is private and does not meet county roads as a public road. It also does serve, you can see to the, I'll have a pointer here, but to the west of those 3 lots, there is a lot that's right there that is served with this private drive. So again, this is the revised PUD plan, is to add those 3 lots to the north. Having really one really long, irregular shaped flag lot, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just really unique, and it's such a long flag lot coming down to a public road. But all 3 lots will be legally accessed by way of a private road. So staff looked at this. Lena Lane is indicated on the PUD plan as a private road and will provide legal access to the 3 proposed lots. Lena Lane, again, is a private road. The county felt that this road should be improved to county standards. Residential lots with no frontage along a public road can have access by a private road if they are 5 acres or larger in size. Well, these lots are not 5 acres or larger in size. These lots do not meet the minimum lot size to have access by a private road. However, the applicants have shown on the PUD plan 3 flag lots to a public road in the adjacent PUD, which does meet the requirements. Staff's recommendation is the 3 proposed flag lots will need to be removed and redrawn to have frontage along Lena Lane. So staff recommended deny the applicant's request, redraw the PUD plan to show those with frontage along Lena Lane and improve Lena Lane to a county road standards. So staff recommends deny the applicant's request and approve a revised PUD plan.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Mr. Bell, are you presenting this?
My name is Jay Bell with Tidewater Properties. And the original PUD that we had for this subdivision had 28 lots. And over the course of the last 18 months, we reduced that to 26. And with the addition of these 3 lots, it will bring our PUD count to 29. So we've got a little bit of a numbering error in the application that we tried to correct. But our intent is to improve Lena Lane, and it's now a private driveway. I don't think it's a private road. It's a private driveway. It serves 5 houses there. We've spoken to the neighbors on Lena Lane that adjoin our property, and they're not here today, but we're satisfied they're in agreement with what we're doing. We're going to improve their driveway to a great extent, and it's pretty simple what we're doing. Our lots access the new road that I'm building, which gives them legal access, and our driveway will actually be Lena Lane that comes in off West Ridge. So it'll be a great improvement for the people who live on Lena Lane. It's now just a dirt road, literally a dirt road. I think the staff has a picture of it, and it throws gravel out into West Ridge Trail on a rainy. There it is, right there. We will improve that a great deal when we build our houses there.
Mr. Bell, the staff recommendation is deny your request and approve other. You understand what they're saying?
What they're saying, it really isn't workable for what we want to do. We only have 1.67 acres there on that little landlocked piece of property. And so this design works much better. These are pretty good sized lots. They're all over a half an acre, and I think they'll be a good addition.
Okay.
Thank you.
We do have a question, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman. Jay, there's this piece that's R1 immediately to the west. Is that who you were talking about? They're using it for a driveway now outside of your PUD to the west?
Yes.
And do they have an easement or something that protects their access across there?
You know, I don't believe they do. It's always come across this property. We don't have any intention of blocking it or anything, but I'm not certain that they've got a legal easement. We're going to add one when we do this plat.
You're going to add a legal easement?
Yes,
for
sir.
it. That's my question. Thank you, Jay.
Right, sir, do you wish to speak on this case?
My name is Glenn Adams, and I live at 9306 West Ridge Trail Road. The area to where this is being developed is adjacent to the Tidewater Properties deal that shows in there the road that comes out that's hooked, and that is the Ridge Trail Road, which I live on. That access coming out on Ridge Trail is one driveway below where I live. Now, I know that development's already been approved. The addition of the other development is kind of a join to it. But my biggest concern is the road that continues on up ties into Segment Hills, which has got over 300 plus homes with only one access road at this point. That's going to open up those homes to access that new road on Ridge Trail Road. We also have a new bus barn up the street. We have the trade school, Sequoia Trade School up there. We have a lot more traffic than we had just a year or so ago. My concern is the Lena Lane, when it comes off of there, that they provide at least a street light and a stop sign, and take into consideration the miles per hour on that street, because at the school, you got a school zone, traffic zone, and then we are just past that zone. And now when the kids get out of school, they hot rod down that road. It's going to be going right past Lena Lane and the new access road to the development of the Tidewater Properties. I think that whole area needs to be looked at as far as safety in the traffic that we're going to increase substantially with the Sedman home section is now free to use that access. And the other one is a small portion of the traffic. I understand that, but I would like to have the council consider that whole safety area as far as traffic. There are kids that walk that street, the West Ridge Trail Road. There are no sidewalks. The street is very narrow. It's just a bad situation. Without more consideration, either adding a street light and a stop sign there at Lena Lane, and kind of taking in the fact that there's other developments that are going to tie into this. And that's my opinion. I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Mr. Bell?
I'd be happy to take up this gentleman's concerns and see if we can address some of them. Some of the things may be out of my ability. The stop sign and the stop light or the light and the stop sign might be something the county has to do. But we only added this entrance to make sure that the fire and the ambulance services had proper access to Sedman Hills. I don't think they're going to use it as a secondary entrance as much as the neighbors may fear, because it's a little bit more inconvenient for them to get to other things through this way. But all of his concerns we're trying to take into consideration. Thank you.
What's the will of the commission? Mr. Chauncey. We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is 2023-0203, and this is located at 1702 East 13th Street, and it's an application to rezone from R1 to RTZ. Staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? And is the applicant present? Okay, Mr. Schultz.
2023-203, this is a request to rezone from R1 to RTZ for single unit residential or zero lot line dwellings. It's the size of the property is 0.16 acres in size, very small lot. Applicants wishing to have 2 units on this property. That's a density of 12.5 dwelling units per acre. Looking at the zoning map in this general vicinity, all this property is zoned R1. There is some RTZ in the neighborhood, and you zoom out the big picture wise, but in this general vicinity, there is no RTZ. Here's a view of those RTZs. So they're you can see the site in red, but there are other RTZs to the north and east and to the west of this site. However, most of those properties rezoned in 2016, 2017 prior to the adoption of the historic River to Ridge plan. This used to have a single family dwelling on it that has now since been removed. To the north, east and west and south is single unit residential dwellings. Here's a view of the site. It's in between these 2 homes. Another view of the site. North of the site. East of the site. West of the site. And then this is East 13th Street. This is in the historic River to Ridge Area 3 plan, which recommends urban residential. Again, the primary uses in this place type is single unit detached. It does allow cottage courts and ADUs, but the primary use is single unit detached. Closer view of that place type recommendation, which is again is urban residential. Here's the site plan. There's two conceptual site plans submitted with this request. This site plan is showing 2 single unit detached dwelling units. This one here shows what it would look like if it was zero lot line dwelling or patio homes, if you will. The 2 units A and B are on the actual lot lines. The request with conditions is compatible with adopted historic River to Ridge plan. It is compatible with adjacent land uses, which is single unit detached. Staff recommends a condition prohibiting parking between the residential dwellings and the street to promote a more urban form and comply with historic River to Ridge place type goals. So staff recommends to approve with the following condition. No parking between the residential dwellings and the street. Force the parking to the rear of these 2 dwellings. Staff recommends to approve with condition.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff? All right, we'll hear from the applicant.
Hello. Excuse me, my voice is going out this afternoon. I'm Jared Dotson. I'm at 219 Cumberland Circle, 37214. There are a little backstory on this is our client bought this house as a renovation originally, and they got into working on it, and the foundation actually had almost collapsed on it and was condemned. So they were forced to demolish the house. As we're standing right now, we are just trying to figure out kind of the best options for them to redevelop. It's not really economically feasible for them to go back and build a single family house as it is. So we're trying to explore kind of what options we have for those. We've worked with the planning department for a couple months now, going back and forth on this, and have settled on the RTZ. We'd like to move forward with the zero lot line option on that. Our only request to this would be to not have the condition of the parking between the dwellings and the street. There's no alley access to this site. It doesn't look like one has ever been there. So it's going to be really tough for us to make this happen to meet the parking requirements for the residential buildings and not have the parking in the front there. That's all.
Thank you. If you're here in opposition, you wish to speak, come on up to the mic.
Afternoon. My name's Dan Heckman. I live at 1710 East 12th, right around the corner from this site. I've come before this commission in the past talking about different projects in Highland Park. I'm a big fan of density, big fan of new neighbors coming into the neighborhood, big fan of things like ADUs. I'm not a big fan of the proposed development and the type of development on this site. The applicant talks about the rhythm of the street not being disrupted by this. And while I appreciate staff's recommendations to not allow front-loaded parking, that would certainly help by doing rear-loaded parking. I don't think that even with rear-loaded parking, I don't think that you can preserve the rhythm of the street, as they say on this site, by splitting that up into multiple dwellings. I don't see rear-loaded parking being practical with the topology of this site. And I don't think that this fits with the community's goals in the neighborhood. Our community cares about things like affordability. I don't think splitting this will actually help with that. I think preserving an existing structure on this site would have been a lot more affordable. If you look at the timeline of when the property was purchased and when the demolition permit was issued, we didn't spend a lot of time trying to save the existing structure that was on this site. I don't think the narrative that the applicant has provided is completely true and in completely good faith. I understand that the property owner has invested a significant amount in this property, and they're trying to recoup that investment. I think the proposed plans would have a negative impact on the surrounding community, the surrounding property owners and citizens. And I don't think that the surrounding neighbors should be responsible for the investment risk of the property owner and the lack of a structure that is there now.
Hi. Thank you all for taking your time to listen to us today. My name is Bengt Carlson, and I live at 1713 East 13th Street. I have a petition here from our neighbors that I'll just read to you. You don't have this. I'll give it to you. We, the undersigned, have concerns that we'd like to protest the zoning changes proposed for this case number, this address. This is a major departure from the historic character of the neighborhood, and especially this street, for the following reasons. Very limited yard or space in the lot takes away from the front porch personality, personability, and connectivity of our street and our surrounding neighborhood. Parking directly in front of the houses where most other homes have a driveway of some kind. There's little or no room for significant tree canopy with this layout. It's not built for the long-term livability, beautification of the neighborhood. And this is signed by 8 different folks. I just mentioned a few of them. Charles and Betty Garrett live at 13th Street, 1710 13th Street. Jason Blake, Marvin Blake, 1711 East 13th Street. Leonard Wigfall, 1712 East 13th Street. These folks have lived in this neighborhood for 35, 40 years. They're against this, and they're the ones who really provide the continuity of the neighborhood and made it a great place to live. And we're grateful that they've done that. And we've also signed this as neighbors. Happy to provide this to you and answer any questions.
Thank you.
Just responding to a couple of their points. The front parking is pretty typical along that neighborhood. We've looked around through there, and a lot of the older houses do have that. Especially you can see from Google Earth. There's plenty of them as a precedent of that. They're a little bit older, but they're on the neighborhood. Talking about the affordability of this, our goal with moving forward with these smaller footprints would be something that's more affordable. The goal on this would be probably a 1,600 square foot house, something 3.2, something you could hit a lower price point as far as on the sale on them. And then again, with the front porch and talking to the design, that is something that we would want to move forward with, is having a front porch, front facades that kind of pull from that historic character in the neighborhood and things like that. We're not trying to pop a cereal box on a lot and run with it there. So that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Dodson, have you met with Councilwoman Knoll on this or had a community meeting at all? With,
Sorry,
folks there?
we have not, but we've reached out to her a couple times and just haven't been able to get that set up yet.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, staff was just talking here, you know, if planning commission desires to move forward with approval, we'd probably recommend adding in condition of single family and a zero lot line only because RTZ does allow townhomes. Be probably difficult to get on that side just to be safe. I'd add that as a condition.
They only own the one lot, right?
Only on one lot.
But that, they can't do zero lot line.
You can RTZ.
Well, I know, but I mean,
They're gonna do 2 lots.
so that means they can go, what, look at this plan right here. What's this zone right here?
This R1,
Right, and this is R1, right?
right?
So where would they do a zero lot line? Because they can't put them against this property line.
On your next site plan, they do have a site plan. They
They
went around
can't go up against that R1 property line.
They can, as long as you meet the spacing requirements. I think the applicants went round and round the LDO on those requirements.
They
That's why we
can.
have 2 site plans here. One, this one here, the first site plan where they're separated, that is single unit detached. And then zero lot line is here. I think they're spaced 6 feet apart between the 2 units, as long as you maintain 10 foot between your adjacent dwelling.
It seems like a big departure from what's existing in the neighborhood, doesn't it?
I think that's what the opposition is basically saying.
I would recommend a deferral. Just to talk to the councilwoman and the neighborhood, I think there's much better collaboration. I think you can get a better solution.
I'm all for that. I mean, I think I'm all for density, and we've developed a lot of RTZ, but not normally on a single lot like this. Normally, there's a pattern that's being established, you know, where there's 3 lots and there's a new pattern that might be a little bit different than what's in the neighborhood, but it some room to work with. And I think as density increases, it does change the conversation in regards to where cars are parked. And so, you know, a couple times today, we've heard RTZ developments that are wanting to park in front. And they're saying, hey, all of our neighbors are parked in front. Their neighbors are on 50-foot wide lots. This is a lot that is half the width. And so I do think that as the density increases, it becomes all the more important that, you know, cars are maybe moved to the back. And that's really challenging with one lot. I will say that I think, isn't there something in front of us today in regards to the accessory dwelling units that increases?
Just an update.
But it might change the size of the
Yes.
accessory dwelling units.
That's our recommendation.
So do you want to, we've got a motion to defer for 30 days and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. All right, next case on the agenda is governmental mandatory referral, and it's MR 2023-0204, and has staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And
Thank you, Ms. Hart.
the next item on our agenda is amendment and resolution. Mr. Schultz.
Yes, this came to our attention by CDOT folks last month or 2 months ago, I guess it was, during the subreg amendments when we added back into the subregs the street standards. We still had left a definition of short cul-de-sac. Those no longer exist in the city of Chattanooga, so we have to need to amend the requirements to delete the definition of short cul-de-sac from subregs. So that's what this amendment does.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So there are no cul-de-sacs in the city of Chattanooga?
Just not short cul-de-sacs.
Only long ones?
Yep. Short cul-de-sac is 10 lots or less, including corner lots. And
So how many can they have on their long ones?
no limit.
Really?
Yep. That was the recommendation of the planning commission. There was some limits on it through fire code, and our engineer department had recommendations on maximum length, and planning commission chose differently. So this is just getting rid of the short cul-de-sac definition. It's no longer valid. You can't do it anyway. So CDOT just wants this removed so there's no ambiguity.
So you're saying it's redundant, basically?
No, that doesn't exist. It's still in there. CDOT doesn't want someone to come in and say, I want to do this short cul-de-sac. There is no such standard for that anymore. So it needs to be removed.
But you can do a street with 10 lots or less.
You just have to be, you can't do reduced right away. The short cul-de-sac was 40-foot right away. This is just a variance.
So it takes away the benefits of reduction in width and
Yes.
length.
All this is
So you can have a short cul-de-sac. It's just not called a short cul-de-sac. It meets all the standards.
Yes, this
of
is
a
just
regular.
a definition in the subregs.
Gotcha.
No standard changes, removing a definition.
And you said we did this last month.
Whenever the subregs were in front of this body,
Like October.
October.
Okay.
There were some standards proposed by engineering, public works, CDOT about maximum length through fire codes. I believe those were removed.
Very good.
Is this something that's put out for public notice before it goes out, I guess?
Yes.
People had time for input.
Yep. Sure was. You have to give 30 days notice.
So I just want to, so it's a definition.
It's a definition.
As part of the subdivision regulations, but the definition's never used in the subdivision
Correct.
regulations as
There
well.
is no such thing as a short cul-de-sac anymore. That was removed many years ago and did not get put back in. And so therefore this definition is just out there.
Yep.
It should have been caught back 3-4 months ago when CDOT brought those standards.
And there's just no such thing as a
There's
short.
no such thing as short cul-de-sac in theory, based on this definition. You got to do all 50-foot wide right of ways.
Correct. Yeah.
Or you can get a variance.
We have a
Yes.
motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And while we're talking about subregs, you're going to have a memo come to you this week by email. So I've already sent it to Chairman Collier. There's a memo that's going to come to you that just explains that we're going to have to take through council a couple places where there is incongruency between city code and the subregs that were approved by planning commission. And I think it talks about a couple instances where we just have city code that's in contradiction. And so we'll present that to council and we'll ask council to take action on it. But if they won't, then we might be back here to talk about subregs again, because we can't have just things that are incongruent in our code. But I'll send you that memo this week.
And then did you want to update us on the accessory dwelling units?
Emily's going to.
Okay.
That.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm going to provide a little background for Dr. Cottle since this is his first meeting. So in 2022, the city council passed the accessory dwelling unit ordinance, which allowed a smaller secondary unit in association with a single family dwelling on the same lot. And part of that ordinance required the staff to conduct a 1-year review, which we have done, and shared the findings of that 1-year review last month. And since then, with the support of Councilman Ledford, we are proposing to bring forward some text amendments to the ordinance. And so you'll see those in January. So I just wanted to share the proposed text amendments with you and to get any additional feedback before it comes officially as an agenda item. The biggest text amendment that's proposed is to increase the maximum square footage of the unit from 700 square feet to 800 square feet. And that was brought up during a survey that was conducted from existing ADU building permit applicants to help increase the livability of the unit. And so that is proposed for both the ordinance and section 38, as well as the form-based code zoning, so that they are consistent. And then there's a few other amendments that are more administrative to help clarify some of the standards for during the permit review process and enforcement. And I did print a handout with some strike throughs to show those, but I apologize. Apparently it only printed the odd pages, but I do have some slides up here as well. So one would be to revise section 38,769, clarifying the entrances of the ADUs. The way the standard reads now is in black, and staff is proposing to add the additional red to make it more clear that if you have an attached ADU, that the entrance can't be on the front. It has to be on the side or the rear. But if it's a detached ADU, which is behind, typically on the side or behind the primary house, it can be on the front since it won't be visible from the street. And there was some confusion with the original language, so that's why we're trying to clear that up. And then projections over yards is another section of the code that talks about accessory structures, but it doesn't specifically list accessory dwelling units. And that section has some setbacks and location standards in there. And so we are just adding that ADUs are exempt from that section because the setbacks and location is addressed in the ADU ordinance. And so that was a conflict in the code that was missed when the ordinance was adopted. So we're just recommending that. We're also recommending to remove the section of the annual review since that has already happened. It is no longer needed to be in the code unless Planning Commission or City Council felt that we should continue to do a review. I do think it is duplicative because it will be included if the new zoning ordinance gets adopted. We will be doing reviews at that time, so this could be wrapped up in that review as well. And then lastly, the ordinance has a few definitions at the end, so we're just recommending that those get moved to section 38.2 with all the other definitions in the zoning ordinance. So those would be the proposed amendments that we will bring to you next month. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Why can't we entertain those amendments today?
No, they were not advertised. We have to advertise any text amendments.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you. We have a time on the agenda for public comment on non-agenda items. Is there any? Thank you. And can I get approval of the Planning Commission? Second. That's for November 11th, 2023. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Payne is gone. And so we have a motion to adjourn. Thank you.